The force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy that flows through stars, planets, and the very fabric of space itself. The Jedi teach that it surrounds us, penetrates us, and holds the galaxy together. The Sith claim it is a weapon to be wielded. But what happens when something falls into this galaxy that the Force cannot touch? What arrives when the cosmic order itself tears open, and an immortal being from a realm beyond even the Force's understanding crashes into a war that believes itself the center of all conflict? The answer came screaming through the atmosphere of Christophsis, like a comet wrapped in golden light and primal laughter. The planet was already burning. The clone wars had reached this crystalline world months ago, turning its elegant cities into battlegrounds where Republic clone troopers fought endless waves of separatist battle droids. General Anakin Skywalker and General Obi-Wan Kenobi had been dispatched to break the siege. Their forces stretched thin across the geometric towers that jutted from the planet's surface like frozen lightning. It was during the Battle of Christophsis, as Anakin led his troops through a contested plaza, that the sky split open. Not metaphorically, not figuratively, the very fabric of space tore. Anakin felt it first, a disturbance in the Force unlike anything he'd experienced. It wasn't the cold darkness of the Sith or the warm light of the Jedi. It was nothing, a void, an absence so profound it felt like the Force itself recoiled from whatever was coming through. "Master," Anakin shouted into his comlink, his blue lightsaber still igniting battle droids that pressed forward. "Do you feel that?" Obi-Wan's voice crackled back, strained. "I feel it, Anakin. It's as if the Force is screaming, 'Get your men to cover.'" Above them, the rift expanded. It wasn't a hyperspace disturbance. Those were clean, mathematical, predictable. This was chaos. Raw cosmic energy spilled through a tear between dimensions, radiating colors that had no names and sounds that shouldn't exist in physical space. The clone troopers stumbled, hands to their helmets. The droids froze mid-step, their processors unable to parse the sensory data. And then something fell through. He tumbled from the rift like a stone from heaven, spinning end over end, surrounded by dissipating golden clouds that smelled of peaches and incense, and something wild that made every living being in a kilometer radius feel suddenly, inexplicably alive. The figure crashed into the crystalline plaza with force enough to shatter the ground into a crater 20 meters wide, sending shockwaves that knocked both clone troopers and battle droids off their feet. The dust settled slowly, shimmering in Christophsis' twin suns. In the center of the crater stood a figure no taller than an average human, covered in golden brown fur that seemed to shimmer with its own internal light. He wore elaborate armor, red and gold, styled like ancient Chinese Imperial Guard regalia, but clearly designed for combat, with plates that looked organic, as if they'd grown rather than been forged. A circlet of gold sat on his head, partially hidden beneath a phoenix feather cap that defied the wind. In his hand, he held a staff, a simple-looking rod of dark metal with golden bands at each end. But it was his face that captured attention. Simian features, undeniably, a monkey's visage, but with eyes that burned with golden fire and intelligence that seemed to pierce through matter itself. Those eyes swept across the battlefield with a mixture of confusion, curiosity, and unmistakable amusement. Sun Wukong, the great sage equal to heaven, the monkey king who had terrorized the celestial bureaucracy and eaten the peaches of immortality, had arrived in a galaxy far, far away. And he was delighted. "Well, well, well," Wukong said in a language that should have been incomprehensible but somehow translated itself directly into the minds of everyone who heard it, a gift of his celestial nature. "This isn't heaven, and it certainly isn't the mountain Buddha trapped me under." He spun his staff experimentally, and it extended 40 feet in an instant, cutting through 3 battle droids before shrinking back to normal size. Much better scenery, though. What's with all the metal men? The battle had stopped. Every organic being on the field was staring at the crater. Every droid had automatically flagged the newcomer as an unknown threat and was recalculating tactical parameters. Anakin was the first to recover. He'd seen strange things in this war: Sith sorcery, ancient Force artifacts, beings of pure energy. But this was different. His connection to the Force told him nothing about this creature. It was like looking at a hole in reality. "Who are you?" Anakin called out, approaching the crater's edge with his lightsaber still ignited. Behind him, Captain Rex and the 500 first formed up, blasters trained on the newcomer. Wukong's golden eyes fixed on Anakin, and for a moment there was a flash of genuine interest. "Now that's a proper question. Polite, too. You've got warrior's eyes, boy." He planted his staff in the ground. It sank into the crystal surface like it was soft clay. "I am son Wukong, the great sage equal to heaven, the handsome monkey king, he who troubled the celestial realm and ate the peaches of immortality. I've battled demons, tricked dragons, and made the gods themselves tremble. And you are?" "General Anakin Skywalker of the Grand Army of the Republic," Anakin replied carefully. This being radiated confidence, not the dark confidence of Sith lords, but something wilder, more primal. "You've landed in the middle of a war zone." "Have I?" Wukong looked around with exaggerated curiosity. "Is that what this is? Seems rather orderly for a proper war. Where I come from, wars have demons eating souls and gods hurling mountains at each other." He pointed at a battle droid with his staff. "What's with the tin soldiers?" As if on cue, the Separatist tactical droid coordinating the assault completed its threat assessment and issued a simple command: eliminate unknown hostile. 200 battle droids opened fire simultaneously. The plaza erupted in a storm of blaster fire, red bolts converging on the crater from every angle. The noise was deafening. The light was blinding. Any normal being would have been vaporized in the first second. Sun Wukong yawned. When the barrage finally stopped, more because the droids needed to prevent barrel overheating than because they'd decided to stop, the Monkey King stood exactly where he'd been, completely unharmed. Smoke rose from the ground around him where blaster bolts had scorched crystal, but not a single hair on his body was singed. "Rude," Wukong observed. "I was having a conversation." He plucked a hair from his arm and blew on it gently. The hair multiplied midair, becoming 50 identical copies of Sun Wukong, each wielding a copy of his staff, each wearing the same amused grin. The clones scattered across the battlefield like a furry golden hurricane, and what followed could barely be called a battle. It was more like watching a force of nature play with building blocks. Wukong and his clones moved with speed that made Jedi look sluggish. They bounded off walls, flipped through the air with impossible grace, and brought their staffs down on battle droids with enough force to turn metal into abstract art. One Wukong extended his staff to 20 meters and swept it in a wide arc, bowling over an entire squad of droids like pins. Another shrunk his staff to the size of a needle, dodged through a hail of blaster fire, then expanded it inside a droid's chassis, tearing it apart from within. The original Wukong simply stood in his crater, scratching behind one ear and watching with the air of a master, observing particularly clumsy students. "Master Skywalker," Rex said carefully, his voice tight with the kind of control that came from years of military discipline, barely containing absolute bewilderment. "What exactly am I looking at?" "I have no idea, Rex," Anakin admitted. He reached out through the Force again, trying to sense the newcomer's intentions, his nature, anything asterisk, and again found nothing. It was like trying to grab smoke. "Obi-Wan, are you seeing this?" "Unfortunately, yes," Obi-Wan's voice came through the comlink. He sounded like a man watching his understanding of the universe quietly pack its bags and leave. "I'm observing from the tower. Anakin, that being just destroyed an entire Separatist battalion in under 2 minutes, without breaking a sweat, and the Force tells me absolutely nothing about him." "Same here." Anakin deactivated his lightsaber slowly, The tactical part of his brain was already working through possibilities, but he doesn't feel hostile, just chaotic. The last battle droid fell, smashed by 3 Wukong clones simultaneously, each apparently wanting credit for the kill. The clones immediately began arguing with each other in a rapid-fire dialect, gesturing emphatically, before dissolving back into individual hairs that drifted back to the original's arm. Wukong stretched, popping his back with a series of cracks that sounded like small explosions. That was disappointing, not even a warm-up. His golden eyes fixed on Anakin again. "So, General Skywalker, explain this war to me. And more importantly," he grinned, showing sharp canines, "where can I find some decent peaches? I'm absolutely starving." Behind Anakin, one of the clone troopers, Fives, if Anakin remembered correctly, spoke up with the kind of bravery that came from already witnessing the impossible. "Sir, did that. Monkey. Just ask about peaches." He did, Fives. After destroying 200 battle droids in under 2 minutes. "Yes. Sir, I think I need to recalibrate my helmet." Wukong's enhanced hearing caught the exchange, and he laughed, a sound like wind chimes made of thunder. "I like this one. He has sense, unlike those metal idiots." He vaulted out of the crater in a single leap, landing directly in front of Anakin with no apparent concern for the 20 blasters still trained on him. Up close, he was even stranger. His fur seemed to shimmer between golden brown and pure light, and his eyes held depths that suggested they'd seen things no mortal was meant to witness. "Now then," Wukong said, leaning on his staff casually, "let's make a deal, General. I'm lost, confused, and hungry. You seem to be in charge of these excellent warriors." He gestured to the clone troopers. "Help me figure out where in the cosmos I've landed, feed me something edible, and I'll consider not turning your little war upside down for entertainment." "Consider," Anakin raised an eyebrow. "I'm immortal, boy. 7 times over, actually. It's a long story involving heavenly peaches, pills of immortality, and a furnace that was supposed to execute me but just made me stronger. I've got nothing but time." Wukong's grin widened. "But I'm also bored, and a bored Monkey King tends to cause problems. So, do we have an accord?" Anakin glanced at Captain Rex, who gave the smallest shrug. "The kind that said your decision, sir. But this is way above my pay grade asterisk." He thought about bringing this being back to the Jedi Council, about Master Yoda's reaction, about the galaxy-wide implications of someone this powerful and this unpredictable suddenly entering the Clone Wars. Then he thought about the look on Count Dooku's face when he heard about this. Anakin smiled. "All right, Monkey King, but first you're coming with us to meet my master. If you really want to understand this galaxy, you'll need to meet the Jedi." "Jedi?" Wukong tested the word. "What's a Jedi?" "Monks with laser swords, basically." Wukong's eyes lit up with pure joy. "Oh, this is going to be asterisk fun asterisk." Above them, the rift in space finally sealed itself, leaving no trace it had ever existed except for the impossible being now standing on Christophsis. Across the galaxy, in his meditation chamber on Coruscant, Darth Sidious suddenly felt a disturbance, a blind spot in his carefully woven web of visions and precognition. Something had entered the board that he hadn't foreseen. Something that couldn't be controlled. Something that made even the dark side of the Force hesitate. The Clone Wars had just become infinitely more complicated. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant had stood for thousands of years as a monument to peace, wisdom, and the light side of the Force. Its 5 spires reached toward the sky like fingers grasping for enlightenment, and within its halls walked the guardians of the Republic, warrior monks who had dedicated their lives to understanding the cosmic energy that bound the galaxy together. None of them had ever encountered anything quite like Son Wukong. The Twilight, Anakin's personal ship, touched down in the temple hangar 3 days after the incident on Christophsis. Those 3 days had been educational for everyone involved. Wukong had spent the hyperspace journey doing 3 things. Eating. He'd consumed enough rations to feed a platoon, and complained the entire time about the lack of proper peaches. Exploring every inch of the ship with the boundless curiosity of a child in a toy store, and asking questions that made even Obi-Wan's legendary patience wear thin. "So let me understand this," Wukong had said, hanging upside down from a ceiling pipe in the cargo hold while Obi-Wan tried to explain galactic politics. "You have a republic, which is supposed to represent everyone, but it's corrupt and controlled by corporations. And you're fighting separatists who left because of said corruption, but they're also controlled by corporations. And you Jedi serve the Republic even though you know it's corrupt. Did I get that right?" Obi-Wan had stroked his beard with the expression of a man reconsidering every life choice that had led to this moment. "When you put it that way, it does sound rather circular." "Circular? It's asterisk stupid asterisk," Wukong had declared, dropping to the floor and landing in a perfect handstand. "Back home, when the Jade Emperor's bureaucracy got too corrupt, I just beat up everyone until they fixed it. Much more efficient." "We can't just beat up the Senate, Wukong." "Why not? You have laser swords." Anakin had actually laughed at that, earning a reproachful look from Obi-Wan, because the Monkey King had a point, even if it was wrapped in absurdity. Now, as they walked through the temple's grand corridors toward the council chambers, Wukong's golden eyes took in everything with fascination. Younglings practicing basic lightsaber forms stopped mid-swing to stare at the furry visitor. Padawans whispered behind their hands. Even the normally unflappable Jedi Knights found themselves gawking at the being who radiated an energy that was simultaneously not asterisk of the Force, yet somehow resonated with something deeper and older. "Impressive architecture," Wukong observed, his staff shrunk down to the size of a walking stick and resting casually on his shoulder. "Very symmetrical, very orderly, very boring." "The temple is a place of contemplation and learning," Obi-Wan explained with strained patience. "Not entertainment." "That's your first problem right there." Wukong pointed his staff at a particularly stern-looking statue of an ancient Jedi Master. "You monks are all the same across universes. So serious, so focused on rules and meditation. Where's the joy? Where's the chaos? Where's the asterisk living? The Jedi Code teaches us to avoid attachments and emotions that lead to suffering." Yes, I heard your speech on the ship," Wukong waved dismissively. "Buddha tried the same thing with me. Son Wukong, you must learn discipline. Son Wukong, you cannot just eat every magic peach you find. Son Wukong, please stop hitting the celestial guards with your stick." He did a surprisingly accurate impression of a stern authority figure, then grinned. "I didn't listen to him either. Well, not until he trapped me under a mountain for 500 years. That got my attention." Anakin, who had been quietly enjoying Obi-Wan's discomfort, suddenly focused. "Wait, someone actually trapped you? How?" "Buddha himself, actually, had to use his full power too." Wukong said it with obvious pride. "Took an entire mountain compressed into a seal covered with sacred sutras. Even then, I didn't exactly die asterisk. Just got paused. Very annoying. But I learned some things during those 5 centuries." "Such as?" Obi-Wan asked, genuinely curious despite himself. Wukong's golden eyes gleamed with mischief. "That I need to pick my fights more carefully, and that the universe has a sense of humor. Otherwise, why would it keep putting me in situations with uptight monks?" They arrived at the entrance to the council chamber. 2 Jedi temple guards stood at attention, their double-bladed yellow lightsaber pikes crossed to bar the way. They'd been briefed about the visitor, but briefings could never truly prepare someone for the reality of Son Wukong. "Master Kenobi," one guard said, his voice modulated through his mask. "The council is waiting, but we must ask, is it wise to bring this being before the entire council?" "Probably not," Obi-Wan admitted, but Master Yoda insisted. The guards exchanged a glance, then uncrossed their pikes. The massive doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss. The Jedi Council chamber was a circular room with tall windows that looked out over Coruscant's endless cityscape. 12 seats arranged in a circle, though only 9 were currently occupied. The Clone Wars had pulled several council members away on distant campaigns. Master Yoda sat in his hover chair, his ancient eyes closed in meditation. Mace Windu sat opposite him, his expression carved from stone. Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, Shaak Ti, and the others watched with various degrees of curiosity and concern. As Wukong entered, every Jedi Master in the room reached out through the Force simultaneously, probing, sensing, trying to understand what had walked into their sanctum, and found absolutely nothing. It was Mace Windu who spoke first, his deep voice carefully controlled. "Skywalker, Kenobi, your report indicated you encountered an unknown being on Christophsis, one who destroyed an entire separatist battalion single-handedly." "That would be me," Wukong said cheerfully, striding to the center of the circle without waiting for invitation. He planted his staff on the polished floor and looked around with bright curiosity. "Nice view, terrible chairs, no back support at all. And who's the little green one? He feels different from the rest of you." Master Yoda's eyes opened, and for a long moment the ancient Jedi Master simply studied the Monkey King. Nearly 900 years old, Yoda had encountered countless beings, studied mysteries that would break lesser minds, and witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. But this was new. "Strong in the Force you are not," Yoda said slowly. "Yet powerful you are, a paradox you present." "Force?" Wukong tilted his head. "Oh, that's what you call the energy here. Interesting. I can feel it like a river flowing through everything. But I don't swim in your river, little master. I have my own source." He tapped his chest. "Celestial cultivation, 7 layers of immortality, magic from a realm your Force doesn't touch." "Impossible," Ki-Adi-Mundi stated flatly. "All living things are connected to the Force. It permeates and binds the galaxy together." Wukong laughed, that wind chime thunder sound that made the windows vibrate slightly. "Your galaxy maybe, but I'm not from your galaxy. I'm from somewhere else entirely, somewhere the rules are different." He spun his staff casually. "Want proof? Use your Force sense on me. Go ahead. Tell me what I'm thinking." Mace Windu's expression tightened, a warning sign that anyone who knew him would recognize. The Master of the Order was not accustomed to being challenged. He reached out through the Force with the full power of a council member, his will focused like a blade. And touched nothing. Not emptiness. Emptiness would have been something. This was an absence so complete it was like the being in front of him simply didn't exist in the Force's framework. "Disturbing this is," Yoda murmured. "A blind spot in the Force you are." "Not a blind spot," Wukong corrected. "Just outside your framework, like," he paused, thinking, "like trying to use your water sense to feel fire. Wrong tool for the job." His golden eyes swept across the council. "But I can see you just fine, every one of you. Your little light energy flows through you like meridians in a cultivation method, but messier, less controlled. You can perceive the Force." Shaak Ti leaned forward, her montrals practically quivering with interest. "I can perceive everything, beautiful lady. One of the perks of eating heavenly pills and bathing in celestial furnaces." Wukong gave her a roguish wink that made the Togruta Master blink in surprise. "I can see through illusions, transformations, lies. These eyes of mine," he pointed to his burning golden gaze, "were forged in the 8 trigrams furnace of Lao Tzu himself. They see truth." Mace Windu stood, his presence filling the room with authority. "Enough games. You claim to be immortal. You claim powers beyond the Force. You appear in the middle of our war without explanation. Give us one reason why we should trust you." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Several Jedi hands drifted toward lightsabers. Anakin tensed, remembering the casual efficiency with which Wukong had dismantled the battle droids. But Wukong just smiled, a genuine smile without mockery. "You shouldn't trust me, bald master. I'm a troublemaker, a rebel, a being who's cheated death and defied heaven itself. I've lied to demons, tricked dragons, and stolen from gods." He paused, his expression becoming more serious. "But I've also protected the innocent, fought monsters, and traveled thousands of kilometers to guard a monk who couldn't throw a proper punch. I've learned slowly, painfully, that power without purpose is just noise." He looked directly at Yoda. "You want to know why I'm here? I don't know. Something tore me from my realm and dropped me in yours, but I am here now, and I've seen enough of your war to know it stinks of manipulation." His nose wrinkled. "Someone's pulling strings behind the scenes, both sides. I can smell the rot." The council chamber went very still. "Bold words," Plo Koon said, his mask modulator giving his voice a mechanical edge. "You've been here mere days. What could you possibly—" "Your clones," Wukong interrupted. "The soldiers, they're good men, honorable, but they're slaves, aren't they? Created for war, given no choice in their destiny. And they're all connected, something in their heads, a switch waiting to be flipped." Anakin felt ice run down his spine. "How could you possibly know that?" "My eyes see through deceptions, remember." Wukong's golden gaze found Anakin. "I can see the little devices in their brains, biological switches, and I can see something else, something dark and oily wrapped around this entire war, around this republic, around—" his eyes narrowed, focusing on nothing visible. "Around someone close, someone in power, someone who's laughing while you all dance." Yoda's ears lowered slightly. A tell that Anakin had learned meant the Grand Master was deeply troubled. "Sense this darkness, can you?" "I can sense it the way you'd sense rot in fruit. It's everywhere in this city." Wukong gestured broadly toward the windows and Coruscant beyond. "This whole planet feels diseased, like an infection that looks healthy on the surface but is hollow underneath." Mace Windu and Yoda exchanged a meaningful glance. The Council had long suspected Sith involvement in the war. Master Yoda had felt the shroud of the dark side clouding their vision. But to have an outside observer confirm their fears so bluntly was both validating and terrifying. "If what you say is true," Shakti said carefully, "would you help us? Would you fight against the Separatists, against the Sith?" Wukong snorted. "Why would I fight your war? I just got here." "Because innocent people are dying," Anakin interjected, stepping forward. "Because planets are being conquered and enslaved. Because someone is manipulating an entire galaxy into tearing itself apart." And Wukong's expression was genuinely curious, not cruel. "I've seen empires rise and fall. I've watched kingdoms burn. Suffering is part of existence. Why should your suffering matter more than any other?" It was a cold question, but not a heartless one. There was something almost philosophical in the way Wukong asked it, like a teacher testing a student. Anakin felt anger flare but pushed it down. This wasn't an enemy. This was something else. Someone who'd seen too much to be moved by simple appeals to heroism. "You said you traveled thousands of kilometers to protect a monk. Why?" Wukong's ears perked up slightly. "You're sharper than you look, Skywalker. I protected Tripitaka because I was bound by a circlet, a magical crown that would tighten and cause me agony if I disobeyed. But also," he paused, and for a moment, something ancient and genuinely kind flickered in those golden eyes. "Because he was the first person who saw past the monster, who believed I could be better than my worst impulses." "Then let me offer you something," Anakin said. "Not a binding, not a command, just a challenge." He could feel Obi-Wan's concerned gaze but pressed on. "You say you're bored. You say you want to understand this galaxy. Then walk with us for a while, see the war, see what we're fighting for, and then decide if it's worth your time. And if I decide it's not, then you walk away, no one here can stop you." Anakin smiled slightly. "We both know that." Wukong studied the young Jedi with interest. There was something in this one, a fire, a passion that the others tried to suppress, raw potential that hadn't been fully controlled by the monk's philosophy. "You're different from them," he observed. "More honest about what you want." Anakin represents the best of the new generation of Jedi, Obi-Wan said, though there was a hint of concern in his voice. Or the most dangerous, Wukong countered. Haven't decided which yet. He spun his staff, shrinking it down to the size of a needle and tucking it behind his ear. All right, Skywalker, I'll play along for now, but I fight on my terms, follow my own path, and answer to no one. Clear. Crystal. Even Buddha couldn't make me bow. Don't expect me to start now. Wouldn't dream of it. Master Yoda thumped his Geimer stick on the floor. Decided it is then. Travel with Skywalker you will, observe our ways, learn our galaxy, but know this, Monkey King. The ancient Jedi's eyes held an intensity that had cowed Sith lords. Great power you possess, great responsibility comes with it. Choose wisely you must. Wukong met Yoda's gaze without flinching. Responsibility. I've carried a monk across demon-infested lands, fought armies of hell, and balanced the cosmic order on my shoulders more than once. I know responsibility, little master. I just choose when and where to apply it. He turned toward the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Whoever your hidden enemy is, the one manipulating everything, they've noticed me. I can feel them watching, trying to figure out what I am. He grinned over his shoulder. This is going to annoy them tremendously. I'm rather looking forward to it. As Wukong strode out of the council chamber, Anakin and Obi-Wan falling into step behind him, the Jedi Masters sat in heavy silence. Well, Ki-Adi-Mundi finally said, that was unprecedented. Dangerous he is, Yoda murmured, but perhaps necessary. A piece on the board that Sidious did not anticipate. You think he can sense the Sith Lord? Mace Windu asked. Sense him, no, but notice the rot, the wrongness, yes. Yoda's ears drooped. Blind we have become, fresh eyes we need, even eyes that see without the Force. In his private chambers deep within the Senate building, Chancellor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, felt the disturbance more acutely than ever. He'd been trying to probe this anomaly since it appeared on Christophsis, trying to see its future in the Force, trying to manipulate it into his grand design. But the Force showed him nothing. Every vision that included this son Wukong fractured and collapsed. Every prediction spawned 1,000 contradictory outcomes. It was like trying to calculate the trajectory of a comet that obeyed no laws of physics. For the first time in decades, Darth Sidious felt something he'd nearly forgotten: uncertainty. The Monkey King had entered his carefully orchestrated war, and suddenly, the outcome was no longer guaranteed. This would require adjustments. Meanwhile, in the temple hangar, Wukong watched clone troopers load supplies onto the Twilight and felt a strange kinship with these manufactured warriors. They reminded him of the celestial army he'd fought, beings created for a purpose not of their own choosing. But unlike those mindless servants of heaven, these clones had personalities, hopes, fears, humanity. Captain Rex, Wukong called out, and the clone commander approached with the cautious respect of a soldier who'd seen the impossible made real. Sir, don't call me sir, call me Wukong, or Your Majesty if you're feeling formal, he grinned. Tell me something, Captain. If you could choose, would you fight this war? Rex's expression was unreadable behind his helmet, but his pause spoke volumes. We were created to fight, Sir Wukong. It's our purpose. That's not what I asked. Another pause, then quietly. I choose to protect my brothers. If the war achieves that, then yes. Wukong nodded slowly. Honest answer, I respect that. He clapped Rex on the shoulder with just enough force to make the clone stumble slightly. You're going to see things get strange, Captain, stranger than you've already seen. When that happens, trust your instincts. Not orders, not programming, your instincts. I'm not sure I understand. You will, Wukong promised, his golden eyes distant. When the betrayal comes, and it is coming, I can smell it. You'll need to choose what kind of man you are, programming or person, slave or free. Before Rex could respond, Anakin called from the ship's ramp. Wukong, we're heading to the outer rim. There's a distress call from a medical station under separatist attack. Medical station. Wukong's ears perked up. People who heal rather than harm. Now that's worth saving. He vaulted toward the ship with an impossible leap, landed on the ramp and looked back at Rex with a wink. See you out there, Captain. Try to keep up. As the twilight lifted off, Rex stood in the hangar, troubled by the strange being's words. Around him, his brothers continued their preparations, unaware that something fundamental had just shifted in the galaxy's trajectory. High above Coruscant in the endless void of space, the Force rippled with uncertainty. The Jedi felt it as unease. The Sith felt it as opportunity disrupted. And somewhere between light and dark, beyond the reach of either, Sun Wukong laughed into the stars, free, wild, and utterly unpredictable. The Clone Wars had been a carefully scripted tragedy, but every script needed an editor. And the Monkey King had just grabbed the pen. The Outer Rim Medical Station beacon's hope hung in the void like a fragile flower of metal and light, its white hull gleaming against the darkness of space. It served 17 systems, providing emergency care to colonies too remote for Republic protection and too poor for corporate medical services. Now, surrounded by separatist frigates and a swarm of vulture droids, it transmitted a desperate distress signal that grew weaker by the hour. The twilight dropped out of hyperspace 3,000 kilometers from the station, and Wukong pressed his face against the viewport like a child seeing fireworks for the first time. Now that's more like it, he breathed, watching the battle unfold in the distance. Turbolaser fire stitched green lines across the black canvas of space. Fighter craft spiraled and burned. The medical station's shields flickered under sustained bombardment, a soap bubble about to burst. You people really do know how to make war interesting. Very colorful explosions. Those explosions are people dying, Obi-Wan said sharply from the co-pilot's seat, his hands flying across the controls. The station has over 2,000 patients and medical staff. If those shields fail, then they die. Yes, I understand mortality. Wukong tapped the viewport. Though I have to say, for being so obsessed with the sanctity of life, you certainly have efficient ways of ending it. Those green energy beams, what are those? Turbolasers, Anakin said, his voice tight with concentration as he piloted toward the battle. Capital ship weapons, and we're about to fly through a lot of them. Excellent, Wukong clapped his hands. This is much better than sitting in your temple listening to philosophy. Action, purpose, things actually happening. The comm crackled to life. Twilight, this is Commander Wolf of the Republic Cruiser Triumphant. General Skywalker, we're outnumbered 3-1. Admiral Trench has brought a full battle group. We can't hold them off and protect the medical station. Through the viewport, they could see the Triumphant, a Venator-class star destroyer, trading fire with 2 separatist frigates while swarms of fighters clashed around it like angry insects. The medical station hung behind the Republic ship, using it as a shield, but separatist forces were attempting to flank around. Admiral Trench, Wukong perked up. Now that's a proper villain name, very dramatic. Is he as impressive as he sounds? He's a Harch, Obi-Wan explained, running tactical calculations. A spider being, one of the most brilliant naval commanders in the separatist arsenal. He's destroyed 3 Republic cruisers in the past month alone. A giant spider who commands warships. Wukong's grin widened. I fought a spider queen demon once. Nasty creature, very poisonous. Had to turn into a wasp to get inside her web and... Wukong, Anakin interrupted. Can you fight in space? The Monkey King paused, considering. Never tried. I can hold my breath for a very long time, centuries actually if I meditate properly. And I've jumped through the clouds between heaven and earth more times than I can count. Space is just very empty clouds, right? That's not exactly how space works, Obi-Wan began, but Anakin was already opening the rear hatch. Close enough. Wukong, we need you to do what you do best, cause chaos. Draw their fire, make them confused. Buy us time to evacuate the station." Wukong stood, stretching until his joints popped with sounds like small firecrackers. "Finally, someone speaking my language. Just one question, can I hit the ships as hard as I want?" "They're droids and separatists. Hit them as hard as you like." Music to my ears. Wukong pulled the needle from behind his ear, and it expanded into his full staff, the Ruyi Jingu Bang, 17,550 pounds of celestial metal that hummed with power even in this distant galaxy. "One question, how do I get over there?" Anakin pointed to the airlock. "We'll fly close, you jump." "Jump in space, to a moving target thousands of your distance units away." Wukong nodded appreciatively. "You're insane, Skywalker. I like you more and more." 3 minutes later, the twilight screamed past a separatist frigate at attack speed, close enough that they could see the hull plating. The airlock blew open, and Sun Wukong, the great sage equal to heaven, launched himself into the vacuum of space with a battle cry that couldn't be heard but was felt in the way reality itself seemed to ripple. His cloud somersault technique adapted instantly to the new environment. Where before he'd ridden on clouds of chi, now he surfed the invisible currents of gravity and momentum, his celestial nature allowing him to treat the void as just another medium to traverse. He bounded off invisible platforms of compressed energy, each leap covering kilometers, his trajectory utterly impossible according to any known physics. The vulture droids detected him first, an organic object moving at impossible speeds without a ship. Their rudimentary AI struggled to classify the threat. By the time they opened fire, Wukong was already among them. He landed on the hull of a vulture droid in mid-flight, balanced perfectly on one foot, and swung his staff through 3 more droids in a single arc. They didn't explode. There was no oxygen for combustion, but they came apart in silent showers of metal and sparks. Wukong laughed soundlessly, leaping from droid to droid like stepping stones, his staff extending and shrinking with each strike. "Twilight to triumphant," Anakin transmitted, all creeping into his voice despite himself. "Are you seeing this?" "Affirmative, General." Commander Wolf's voice carried the same bewilderment Rex had expressed days ago. "What exactly is that?" "That," Obi-Wan said slowly, watching Wukong destroy an entire squadron of vulture droids in under 30 seconds, "is Sun Wukong. Try not to shoot him." "Wouldn't dream of it, sir." Aboard the Separatist flagship, a modified Providence-class destroyer bristling with weapons, Admiral Trench observed the carnage through his tactical display with 4 of his 8 eyes. The Harch Admiral was a nightmarish sight, a massive spider being with chitinous armor and mandibles that clicked rhythmically when he was thinking. His other 4 eyes focused on the biological readout of the intruder. "What is that?" he hissed in his heavily accented basic. His tactical droid, designation ST-492, cycled through databases at maximum processing speed. "Unknown, Admiral. The entity appears to be organic but survives in vacuum. Displays strength exceeding any known species by several orders of magnitude. Recommendation: reclassify as Force user and engage with appropriate countermeasures." "It's not a Jedi," Trench observed, watching Wukong tear through another wave of fighters. "Jedi use their laser swords and force powers. This creature uses a primitive staff and brute strength, but such strength..." His mandibles clicked faster. "Concentrate fire, all batteries. I want that thing vaporized." The flagship's turbolasers swiveled, tracking the small figure carving through their fighter screen. 20 heavy cannons locked on target and fired simultaneously. Wukong sensed the incoming fire, not through the Force, but through the battle-honed instincts of someone who'd fought the armies of heaven. He pulled 3 hairs from his arm and blew on them. Instantly, 3 perfect duplicates appeared, each identical down to the last fiber of fur. The clones scattered in 4 directions just as the turbolaser barrage arrived. The beams converged on empty space where Wukong had been a microsecond before. The real Monkey King was already vaulting toward the flagship, using destroyed vulture droids as springboards, his velocity increasing with each bound until he became a golden-brown streak against the stars. He hit the flagship's hull feet first, landing with enough force to create a visible dent in the armor plating. Through the metal, he could feel the vibrations of hundreds of droids moving inside, the hum of reactors, the rhythmic pulse of what must have been their equivalent of a heartbeat. Wukong grinned and raised his staff high. The Rui Jingu Bang responded to his will, growing, not just longer but heavier. In Journey to the West, it had been used to measure the depths of the Eastern Ocean. Here, in the cold vacuum of space, it would measure the durability of separatist engineering. He brought it down like the hammer of an angry god. The impact sent shockwaves through the entire ship. Inside, droids stumbled and fell. Power systems flickered. Admiral Trench was thrown from his command chair, his 8 legs scrambling for purchase. Emergency alarms blared in 14 different languages. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. SD-492 reported, its mechanical voice actually registering something that might have been alarm. Structural integrity compromised. That single impact caused more damage than... Wukong raised his staff and struck again, and again, each blow sending tremors through kilometers of metal, each impact driving deeper into the ship's infrastructure. He wasn't trying to destroy it, not yet. He was knocking, very, very loudly. "Is anyone home?" he shouted into the vacuum, knowing they couldn't hear him but not particularly caring. "Come out and fight properly. Hiding in your metal shell is cowardly." Inside the ship, Trench had regained his composure. His tactical mind, honed through 100 battles, quickly assessed the situation. This being, whatever it was, represented a threat beyond normal combat parameters. Standard weaponry was clearly ineffective. They needed something special. "Deploy the boarding droids," Trench ordered. "Full complement, and activate the EMP mines around the hull. If this creature is organic, the electromagnetic pulse might disrupt its nervous system." Admiral SD-492 interjected. "Imp weapons are highly unpredictable against unknown biology. We risk." "I risk nothing," Trench's mandibles snapped. "I am Admiral Trench. I have destroyed Jedi Masters and Republic champions. I will not be humiliated by an asterisk monkey." The flagship's hull suddenly bristled with hatches opening. Hundreds of battle droids poured out into space, specially designed boarding models with magnetic clamps and built-in thrusters. They swarmed toward Wukong like metallic ants defending their colony. Wukong's golden eyes lit up with delight. "Now we're talking." What followed could barely be called a battle. It was more like watching a force of nature play with toys. Wukong spun through the swarm of boarding droids, his staff a blur of motion that left destruction in its wake. He shrunk the staff to needle size to pierce through droid chassis with surgical precision, then expanded it to massive proportions to sweep away dozens at once. His duplicates, now numbering over 20, created a perimeter of chaos around the flagship. But Admiral Trench hadn't survived hundreds of battles through stupidity alone. While Wukong was occupied with the boarding droids, the EMP mines activated, a dozen spheres of crackling electromagnetic energy that detonated simultaneously around the Monkey King. The pulse hit him like an invisible wall of force. For a normal organic being, it would have fried every nerve, stopped every synaptic impulse, induced immediate seizure and death. For Sun Wukong, who'd bathed in the 8 trigrams furnace and consumed every form of immortality the heavens possessed, it was merely uncomfortable. He shook his head, his fur standing on end from the static discharge. "Rude," he shouted in vacuum. That actually tickled. But the distraction had served Trench's purpose. While Wukong recovered, the Admiral had repositioned 2 of his escort frigates to form a crossfire, and now their combined turbolaser batteries opened up at point-blank range. The barrage was overwhelming. Even Wukong's incredible durability had limits, and concentrated capital ship weaponry was finding them. He felt his celestial protection strained, felt the heat of plasma beams that could melt through starship armor, felt, for the first time since arriving in this galaxy, actual pain. It made him smile. Finally, he plucked a handful of hair from his head, at least 50 strands, and blew on them with all his might. The hairs exploded into a veritable army of Wukongs, each one wielding a perfect copy of the Ruyi Jingu Bang, each one sharing the original's memories and combat prowess. The clone army dispersed across the battlefield like a golden plague. Some attacked the frigates directly, landing on their hulls and tearing into weapon emplacements with bare hands and impossible strength. Others intercepted the continuing waves of vulture droids. A few, the most mischievous ones, actually found airlocks and forced their way inside the separatist ships, where the sounds of mayhem echoed through metal corridors. On the Triumphant, Commander Wolf watched his tactical display with the expression of a man whose understanding of warfare was being systematically dismantled. "General Kenobi," he said carefully, "your friend has just boarded 3 enemy ships simultaneously, by himself, multiple times." "Technically, he's using clones," Obi-Wan replied, which didn't help clarify anything. "Anakin, we should use this distraction. The Separatists are completely focused on Wukong. If we move now." Already on it, Anakin was flying the Twilight in a tight spiral around the medical station, dodging debris and the occasional stray turbolaser bolt. "Triumphant, launch all transports. Begin evacuation of Beacon's Hope. We have maybe 10 minutes before Trench regains control." "Acknowledged, General." As Republic transport ships began ferrying patients and medical staff from the endangered station, Wukong was having the time of his life. He'd fought his way into Admiral Trench's flagship, his clone army having cleared a path through hundreds of droids. Now he stood in the main corridor, facing down a phalanx of super battle droids and destroyer droids that had been hastily assembled to stop him. Behind them, Admiral Trench himself emerged, mounted on a hovering platform bristling with weapons. His 8 eyes focused on the Monkey King with a mixture of anger and grudging respect. "You are impressive, creature," Trench admitted, his accent thick. "But you are alone, and I have an army." Wukong tilted his head, considering. "You know what? You're right. I am alone. These clones are just extensions of me after all. It's not fair to you." He snapped his fingers, and all his duplicates throughout the ship dissolved back into individual hairs, drifting away like golden snow. Trench's mandibles clicked in confusion. "You dismiss your advantage. Why?" "Because I got bored," Wukong said simply. "Fighting your metal men was fun for about 3 minutes, but there's no challenge in it, no artistry." He pointed his staff at the Admiral. You're different, a commander, a strategist, someone who thinks. Fighting you might actually be interesting." "You want to duel me?" Trench laughed, a chittering, clicking sound. "I am not a warrior, fool. I am a tactician. I win through superior planning and positioning." "Then plan for this." Wukong moved, not with the flashy acrobatics he displayed before, but with the refined technique of a master martial artist who'd studied under gods. He was across the distance between them in a heartbeat, his staff striking at Trench's platform with precision that targeted specific structural points. The platform exploded. Trench tumbled, his 8 legs scrabbling, but before he could hit the floor, Wukong caught him, gently, and set him upright. "You're not a fighter," Wukong agreed, "so I won't kill you, but..." He leaned in close, his golden eyes boring into Trench's multiple orbs. "Remember this moment. Remember that all your weapons, all your ships, all your tactical genius couldn't stop one monkey with a stick. Remember and tell whoever you work for. There's something new in this galaxy. Something that doesn't care about your war, your plans, or your machines." He released Trench and vaulted backward, his cloud somersault carrying him through the corridors at impossible speed. Behind him, The remaining droids opened fire, but he was already gone, a golden streak heading back toward the hull breach he'd created. Trench stood among his ruined command center, his strategic mind already processing what had happened. This being, this son Wukong, was beyond his capacity to counter with conventional forces, which meant it was beyond Count Dooku's capacity, which meant it would reach Lord Sidious's attention. The Arch Admiral didn't envy whoever had to deliver that report. Outside the ship, Wukong somersaulted through space back toward the Republic forces. Below him, or above, direction was meaningless here. The medical station was empty, the last transport ship pulling away. The Triumphant was already turning, preparing to jump to hyperspace. The twilight hung in space, waiting for him. As he approached, he noticed something odd. The ship's rear hatch was open. Anakin had left it open for him. But more than that, he could see Obi-Wan and Anakin both standing in the opening, tethered by safety lines, watching him return. They were smiling, actual smiles, the kind of expression warriors gave each other after a successful battle. For reasons he didn't fully understand, that made something warm kindle in Wukong's chest. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at him with simple camaraderie rather than fear, worship, or calculation. He landed on the ramp with his characteristic perfect grace, and Anakin immediately began closing the hatch. As atmosphere flooded back in, sound returned. That, Anakin said, laughing with genuine joy, was the most insane thing I've ever seen, and I've fought Grievous. You didn't destroy the ships, Obi-Wan observed, stroking his beard thoughtfully. Didn't need to, Wukong shrugged. Made my point. Besides, if I destroyed them, that Spider Admiral wouldn't be able to report back to his masters, and I very much want his masters to know I'm here. Why? Obi-Wan asked. Wukong's golden eyes gleamed with that particular mischief that had terrified heaven. Because I'm starting to understand your war, Kenobi, and I don't like it. Someone's pulling strings. Someone's manipulating both sides. Someone thinks they're very clever. He grinned, showing sharp canines. I've made a career out of annoying people who think they're clever. As the twilight jumped to hyperspace, carrying them back toward the core worlds, none of them noticed the small probe droid that had been recording everything from a debris field. The droid transmitted its data across encrypted separatist channels, which fed into another network, which eventually reached a shadowed office on Coruscant. Darth Sidious watched the footage in silence. He watched son Wukong tear through his forces like they were paper, watched him survive firepower that should have vaporized any living being, watched him demonstrate power that existed entirely outside the Force's framework. Problematic, Sidious murmured to himself. Most problematic. He'd spent decades orchestrating this war, every piece placed with precision, every outcome calculated. The Jedi would be destroyed. The Republic would become his empire. It was destiny, written in the dark side itself. But destiny meant nothing to a being that destiny couldn't touch. Sidious reached out through the Force, trying once again to perceive this son Wukong's future. As before, he found only chaos, a million branching paths, none of them clear, all of them leading to contradictory outcomes. For the first time in his long life, Darth Sidious felt something he'd nearly forgotten: doubt. But doubt was merely another tool, fear merely another weapon. If this Monkey King couldn't be predicted, he would have to be managed, controlled, or, if necessary, eliminated. Sidious's lips curled into a thin smile. He'd destroyed the Jedi Order. He'd corrupted the Chosen One. He'd bent an entire galaxy to his will. One immortal monkey wouldn't stop him. Still, perhaps it was time to accelerate certain plans. Time to bring in assets he'd been saving for later. Time to remind the galaxy why the Sith ruled the shadows. Lord Tyrannus, Sidious spoke into his private comm, reaching Count Dooku across the galaxy. We need to discuss a complication, a significant one. On the twilight, Wukong sat in the cargo hold. polishing his staff while humming a tune from a realm far from here. Anakin found him there. 2 cups of that bitter calf they drank in this galaxy. Thought you might be thirsty, Anakin offered. Wukong accepted the cup, sniffed it, made a face. Tastes like burnt mud, but I appreciate the gesture. He took a sip anyway. You're troubled, Skywalker. I can see it in your eyes. What's bothering you? You could have destroyed those ships, Anakin said. Killed everyone aboard, ended that threat permanently, but you didn't. Why? Would you have preferred I kill them? No, Anakin said quickly. Then more honestly, maybe, I don't know. Every separatist we leave alive is someone who might kill Republic soldiers tomorrow, might kill innocents. Ah, Wukong nodded sagely. The warrior's dilemma. Kill the enemy today to save friends tomorrow, or show mercy and risk those you protect. He took another sip of the terrible calf. Want to know what I learned after 500 years under a mountain? What? That the cycle of violence only ends when someone chooses to step off the wheel. I killed thousands in my youth, demons, yes, but also celestial soldiers who were just following orders, just doing their duty. His golden eyes were distant. Everyone I killed had someone who mourned them, and many of their relatives sought revenge, creating more violence, more death, more mourning. So you just stopped, let your enemies live. Not exactly. I still fight, still protect, still crack skulls when necessary, Wukong grinned. But I choose my targets more carefully now. The truly evil, the manipulators, the ones who hurt others for profit or pleasure, those I have no mercy for. His expression became serious. But soldiers following orders, warriors doing their duty, those I spare when I can, because they're not the problem, they're the weapon. And you don't destroy the weapon, you find who's holding it. Anakin sat down across from him, thinking. The Jedi say we should protect everyone, show compassion even to our enemies. The Jedi say a lot of things, Wukong observed. Doesn't mean they're wrong, doesn't mean they're right, just means they're trying to make sense of an absurd universe same as everyone else. He pointed his staff at Anakin. Here's what I think, you're a good warrior, Skywalker, strong, skilled, passionate. But you're so afraid of your own darkness that you try to suppress everything. That's not balance, that's repression. The Jedi Code. The Jedi Code was written by beings who were afraid of their emotions, probably for good reasons. Your Force power seems very influenced by feelings, but fear of darkness doesn't create light, boy. It creates shadows, things hidden, things that fester. Anakin was quiet for a long moment. You sound like someone else I know, someone the Jedi Council doesn't approve of. Then they have good taste in friends. Wukong finished his calf and stood, stretching. Get some rest, Skywalker. Something tells me the universe is about to get much more complicated. And when it does, you're going to need to make choices your monks can't make for you. As Anakin left, troubled and thoughtful, Wukong returned to polishing his staff and humming. But his golden eyes were alert, watching, seeing through the hull of the ship to the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, someone was watching him back, someone who thought they controlled everything, someone who would soon learn that heaven itself had failed to control son Wukong. This was going to be fun. The Resolute hung in orbit above Kamino like a dagger pointed at the storm-racked planet below. Inside the Venator-class Star Destroyer's main hangar, Captain Rex stood at attention with the 501st Legion, Anakin's personal battalion of clone troopers, the men who'd earned the nickname Vader's Fist for their effectiveness in combat. Today, they were getting a new consultant, though Rex suspected that word didn't begin to cover what son Wukong actually was. The Twilight touched down with its characteristic smooth landing, and the ramp extended. Anakin emerged first, followed by Obi-Wan, and then, hopping down the ramp with a staff casually slung over his shoulder, the Monkey King himself. The entire hangar went silent. 200 clone troopers, identical in their white and blue armor, stared at the furry being who'd single-handedly torn through a separatist battle group. Wukong stared back with open curiosity, his golden eyes scanning the assembled soldiers. Fascinating, he murmured, walking directly up to Rex. They're all the same. Literally, same face, same build, same genetic structure, but he tilted his head, his enhanced senses detecting something deeper. Not the same soul, not the same spirit. Each one is different where it matters. Rex had been briefed about son Wukong's abilities, or as much as General Skywalker understood them. Still, having those golden eyes examine him so directly was unnerving. It felt like being seen in a way that went beyond physical appearance. "Sir," Rex said formally, defaulting to military protocol when uncertain. "Captain CT-7567, 501st Legion. The men are ready for inspection." "Inspection?" Wukong laughed. "Do I look like an officer? Please, Captain, call me Wukong, and I'm not here to inspect anyone." He raised his voice so the entire hangar could hear. "I'm here because your general thinks I should understand what you soldiers are fighting for. So I'm going to walk among you, fight alongside you, and probably annoy you with questions. Fair warning, I respect warriors, but I have no patience for stupidity or cruelty. Treat each other well, fight bravely, and we'll get along fine." He paused, then grinned. "Also, if anyone wants to spar later, I'm always looking for a good fight. No force powers, no magic, just skill and strength. Any takers?" A ripple of interest went through the assembled clones. These were men bred for combat, trained from birth to be soldiers. The prospect of testing themselves against a being who'd casually torn apart separatist capital ships was both terrifying and irresistible. "Sir Wukong," Fives called out, stepping forward. The ARC trooper had witnessed the battle on Christophsis and had been telling stories about it ever since. "What are the rules of engagement?" "Rules?" Wukong's eyes gleamed. "Don't kill me, though you can't anyway, and I won't kill you. Beyond that, fight however you like. Use weapons, tactics, teamwork, make it interesting." "Permission to organize a training exercise, Captain?" Fives asked Rex. Rex glanced at Anakin, who nodded with barely suppressed amusement. "Permission granted, but Fives, don't break our guest." "Wouldn't dream of it, sir." 2 hours later, in the Resolute's main training hall, Sun Wukong faced down 20 of the 501st best soldiers. They'd chosen the environment carefully. A multi-level combat arena with cover, elevated positions, and obstacles that would allow them to use tactics rather than relying on pure force. Wukong stood in the center of the arena, his staff resting on his shoulder, looking utterly relaxed. Around him, clone troopers took positions with the practiced efficiency of elite soldiers. They had stun blasters, flashbangs, riot shields, grappling cables, every non-lethal tool in their arsenal. Anakin and Obi-Wan watched from the observation deck above, joined by several other Jedi, and a crowd of off-duty clones who'd heard about the exhibition match. "This is either going to be very educational or very embarrassing," Obi-Wan observed. "For them or for Wukong?" Anakin asked. "I'm genuinely unsure." Below, Rex's voice crackled over the comm. "All units ready. Wukong, are you prepared?" "Been ready since before your galaxy existed, Captain. Begin when you like." Rex didn't waste time. "Execute." The clones moved with textbook precision. Flashbangs deployed from 3 directions, filling the arena with blinding light and deafening noise. Smoke grenades followed immediately after, obscuring visibility. From elevated positions, snipers with stun rifles aimed at where Wukong had been standing. Ground troops with riot shields advanced in formation, ready to box him in. It was a perfect coordinated assault, the kind that had overwhelmed battle droids and even successfully captured enemy commanders. When the smoke cleared, Wukong was sitting cross-legged on top of one of the riot shields, balanced perfectly despite the trooper beneath him trying to figure out when the Monkey King had gotten there. "Solid opening," Wukong commented cheerfully. "Good use of sensory disruption and coordinated fire lanes, but you're thinking of me as a target to be contained." He hopped off the shield, landing in front of the trooper. "I'm not a target, I'm terrain. You can't contain terrain, you have to adapt to it." He tapped the trooper's chest plate gently with one finger, and the clone stumbled backward as if he'd been hit by a speeder. Not injured, Wukong had controlled the force perfectly, but definitely off balance. Again, Wukong called out, and this time stop thinking like you're fighting a person. Think like you're fighting a force of nature. The training exercise continued for an hour. The clones adapted quickly. They were bred to learn, after all, and began treating Wukong less like an enemy soldier and more like a hazard to be worked around. They used area denial tactics, created crossfires that forced him to move in predictable directions, even attempted to collapse parts of the terrain on him. Wukong praised every clever adaptation and pointed out every mistake. When Hardcase tried to tackle him directly, Wukong let himself be tackled, then used the momentum to redirect the trooper into a perfect flip that left Hardcase dizzy but unharmed. When Jesse organized a pincer movement, Wukong applauded the coordination even as he vaulted over their heads. But it was when Fives tried something truly creative that Wukong's expression changed from playful to genuinely impressed. The ARC trooper had noticed something. Wukong always kept his staff in contact with the ground when he wasn't actively moving. It seemed to be how he sensed his surroundings, a technique that let him detect movement through vibration. So Fives had rigged a series of small charges throughout the arena floor, not to hurt Wukong, but to create a pattern of vibrations that would overwhelm that sense. When Fives triggered the charges, the entire floor shuddered with conflicting pulses, and in that moment of sensory confusion, 3 troopers fired grappling cables from different angles, while 2 more deployed a capture net weighted with magnetic clamps. For the first time in the exercise, Wukong was actually caught. The net wrapped around him, the cables pulled taut, and for a moment the clones thought they'd actually done it. Then Wukong laughed, genuinely delighted laughter, and simply expanded. His body grew, invoking one of his 72 transformations. In seconds, he went from human size to the size of a small building, the net tearing like tissue paper, the cables snapping like thread. Then he shrank back down to normal size, landing lightly on his feet. "Excellent," he called out, pointing at Fives. You thought beyond direct confrontation. You analyzed your opponent's methods and found a weakness. That's asterisk how warriors survive. He addressed all the clones. You're all skilled, well-trained, but too many of you rely on the training alone. Think creatively, adapt. Your enemy won't always follow the battle plans you studied. He shrunk his staff down to needle size and tucked it behind his ear. "One more round. No weapons for me. And this time," his grin widened, "I won't go easy on you." What followed was a masterclass in martial arts that would be studied and discussed by the 501st for years to come. Wukong moved through the clones like water through stone, not forcing, but flowing, redirecting their attacks into each other, using minimal force to maximum effect. He demonstrated techniques from 1,000 years of celestial kung fu, each movement precise and purposeful. But more importantly, he taught as he fought. Your stance is too rigid, you're an easy target. Good adaptation, but watch your flank. Excellent teamwork, now capitalize on it. Every correction was delivered without condescension, warrior to warrior. By the end, every clone trooper in the exercise was exhausted, bruised, and grinning beneath their helmets. They hadn't won, hadn't even come close, but they'd learned more in 1 hour than in a month of standard training. As the clones caught their breath, Wukong hopped up to the observation deck where Anakin and Obi-Wan waited. His fur wasn't even mussed. "Your soldiers are excellent," Wukong declared. "Brave, adaptable, honorable. They remind me of the best warriors I fought alongside during my journey." His expression became more serious, which makes what's been done to them even more obscene. "What do you mean?" Anakin asked, though something in his tone suggested he knew exactly what Wukong meant. "They're slaves, Skywalker, born in tubes, raised to fight, given no choice in their destiny. That's slavery." Wukong's golden eyes burned with intensity. I've broken chains, literal and metaphorical. I've fought against beings who tried to control me, own me, use me as a weapon. That's why I rebelled against heaven itself. And now you're asking me to fight alongside an army of slaves. The observation deck went very quiet. Other Jedi shifted uncomfortably. The subject of the clones' autonomy, or lack thereof, was something the Order preferred not to examine too closely. Obi-Wan stroked his beard thoughtfully. The clones were created to serve the Republic, to protect it. That's their purpose. Purpose? Wukong's voice was sharp. Purpose assigned by others isn't purpose, it's programming. Tell me, Kenobi, if I grabbed you as an infant, raised you in a box, trained you only to kill, and told you your asterisk purpose was to die for my cause, would you call that noble? Or would you call it slavery? The situations are different. They're not, Anakin interrupted quietly. Both Obi-Wan and Wukong turned to look at him. The young Jedi's face was troubled, old memories clearly surfacing. I was a slave once, on Tatooine, and the worst part wasn't the collar or the labor. It was everyone telling me that's just how things were, that it was necessary, that it was for the greater good. Anakin, Obi-Wan began. He's right, Master. The clones are slaves. We just call it something else because it makes us feel better about using them. Wukong nodded approvingly. At least you're honest about it, that's the first step. He leaned against the railing, looking down at the clones below who were comparing bruises and laughing despite their exhaustion. I'll fight your war, Skywalker. I'll help you protect those medical stations and defend the innocent. But I won't pretend this army is anything other than what it is. And if I see a chance to free these men, truly free them, I'll take it. The Republic needs them, a Jedi Knight named Krell interjected. He was a basilisk, four-armed and imposing. Without the clone army, the Separatists would conquer everything. Millions would die. Millions are already dying, Wukong shot back. Including these clones you're so eager to spend like currency. How many have died in this war? Thousands, tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands, Anakin said quietly. Maybe more, the exact count is classified. Classified? Wukong's laugh was bitter. Of course it is. Can't let the people know how much blood they're spending. He pushed off from the railing. I'm going to talk to them, the soldiers, learn their stories, understand what they think about all this. Any objections? None of the Jedi spoke up. What could they say? Over the next several days, as the Resolute traveled to its next deployment, son Wukong became a fixture in the clone barracks. He ate with them, trained with them, and most importantly, listened to them. The clones, initially wary of this strange being, gradually opened up. Wukong had a way of making people comfortable, partially because he genuinely didn't care about rank or protocol, and partially because he treated them as individuals rather than identical units. He learned about Fives and Echo, the ARC troopers who'd survived the Rishi Moon Station and earned commendations for creativity under fire. He sparred with Hardcase, who fought with reckless abandon that reminded Wukong of his younger self. He played strategy games with Tup, whose tactical mind was sharper than most officers realized. He shared stories with Jesse, Kix, and Dogma, learning about their hopes, fears, and dreams. And he learned about the inhibitor chips. It was Fives who brought it up, during a late-night conversation in the barracks. Most of the other clones were asleep, but Fives had noticed Wukong didn't seem to need much rest. "Can I ask you something?" Fives said, sitting down next to where Wukong was polishing his staff. "You just did, but ask another. Your eyes, you said they see through illusions, through transformations. Can they see inside people?" Wukong set down his staff, giving Fives his full attention. "What are you really asking, soldier?" Fives was quiet for a moment. "There's something in our heads. All of us clones, a chip, organic, built into our brains during development. The Kaminoans, the ones who created us, say it's to prevent aggressive behavior, to make us more docile, more controllable. But you don't believe that." "I don't know what to believe, but sometimes I wake up feeling like there's something in my head that isn't me, like there's a switch waiting to be flipped. Fives looked directly at Wukong. Can you see it? This chip? Can you tell me what it really does? Wukong's golden eyes focused on Fives, and for the first time, the clone saw those mystical orbs truly activate. They blazed with inner fire, seeing beyond flesh and bone, perceiving the truth beneath the surface. What Wukong saw made his blood run cold. Inside Fives' brain, inside every clone's brain, was a small organic chip, barely larger than a grain of rice. But it was connected to crucial neural pathways, positioned to override voluntary control. And within the chip's genetic code, Wukong could sense something dormant. A command, a protocol. Order 66. He didn't know what the order would do, not exactly. But he could sense its purpose: override autonomy, enforce absolute obedience, turn soldiers into executioners against specific targets. Against the Jedi. Yes, Wukong said finally, his voice carefully controlled. I can see it, and you're right to be concerned. Fives' hands clenched. What does it do? It's a kill switch. Not to kill you, to kill your will, to turn you into a weapon that can be activated with a code phrase. Wukong's expression was grim. Someone somewhere can speak the right words and you'll become a puppet. All of you will. Who? The Kaminoans. They built it, but they're not the ones who ordered it. Wukong stood, his staff extending to full length. Someone very powerful, very clever designed this. Someone who's playing a long game. Can you remove them, the chips? Wukong examined Fives more closely, his celestial senses mapping the chip's connections. I could, carefully, very carefully, but there are millions of you and I'm only one being. Even I can't perform millions of surgeries. Then what do we do? We document it, we gather evidence, and we expose whoever's responsible. Wukong placed a hand on Fives' shoulder. But Fives, this information is dangerous. If the wrong people know that you know about the chips, they'll silence you, permanently. I'm already dead, Fives said quietly. We all are. We're military property with expiration dates. But if I can help my brothers, if I can give them a chance at real choice, then it's worth the risk. Wukong studied the ARC trooper for a long moment, then nodded with deep respect. You're a true warrior, Fives, not because you fight well, though you do, but because you fight for something beyond yourself. He made a decision. All right, I'll help you, but we do this carefully, quietly. We gather evidence first, then we decide who to trust with it. Over the next few days, Wukong used his abilities to examine dozens of clones, confirming that every single one carried the chip. He documented what he saw using a combination of Republic medical scanners and his own observations, creating a file that detailed the chip's function and placement. But he also noticed something else. The chips weren't just biological, they were connected to a signal network. Dormant now, but ready to receive a specific transmission. When that transmission came, the chips would activate simultaneously across the entire clone army. It was brilliant, in a horrifying way. A galaxy-wide conspiracy hiding in plain sight, written into the genetic code of the Republic's defenders. We need to tell the Jedi Council, Fives insisted during one of their planning sessions. Are you certain? Wukong asked. If the Jedi know, they might panic. They might try to remove all the clones from service, which would cripple the Republic's defense and play right into the Separatists' hands. But if we don't tell them, then we're complicit in whatever's coming. Wukong sighed. You're right, we have to tell them, but we need ironclad proof, evidence they can't dismiss or rationalize away. That's when Echo, Fives' brother who'd recently returned from Separatist captivity, had an idea. The Kaminoans keep records, everything about our creation, our programming, our design specifications. If we could access those files, then we'd have official documentation of the chip's true purpose, Wukong finished. Where are these records kept? Kamino, the cloning facilities. Wukong grinned, that dangerous expression that meant he was about to do something reckless. Then it seems we need to visit the factory where you were made. Who wants to go home? The plan came together quickly. The Resolute was scheduled to stop at Camino anyway, standard resupply and rotation of training cadres. Wukong would accompany Rex, Fives, and Echo on a routine inspection, during which they would access the restricted files. Anakin, when informed of the plan, was torn between his duty to inform the Council and his trust in his men, and in Wukong. "If you're wrong about this," Anakin said, "you'll cause a scandal that could damage the entire war effort." "And if we're right," Wukong countered, "then the Republic has been compromised from the beginning." Anakin made his decision. "Do it. Get the evidence. But be careful, the Kaminoans don't like people poking around their secrets." The rains of Camino were exactly as Rex remembered. Endless, torrential, the kind of weather that made the entire planet feel like it was trying to drown you. Wukong, stepping out onto the landing platform, looked up at the sky with delight. "Now this is weather. Reminds me of the water curtain cave back home." He spun his staff, creating a small umbrella effect that deflected the rain. "Come on, let's meet these clone makers." The Kaminoans were tall, graceful beings with elongated necks and large, unsettling eyes. They greeted the visitors with polite coldness, the kind of hospitality that made it clear you were tolerated rather than welcomed. Lama Su, the Prime Minister, examined Wukong with barely concealed disdain. "A non-human consultant. How unusual. What is your purpose here, creature?" Wukong's smile was all teeth. "I'm here to evaluate your product, see how your merchandise performs under stress." "Our clones are the finest soldiers in the galaxy," Lama Su said stiffly. "Bred for obedience, trained for efficiency, designed for—" "Slavery," Wukong interrupted. "You can use fancy words, but you're describing slavery." The Kaminoans' expression didn't change. Their faces rarely did, but there was a definite chill in the air. "We prefer the term purpose-bred labor force. The clones were commissioned by the Republic. We simply fulfill contracts." "Of course you do." Wukong gestured to Rex and the others. "Captain Rex has requested a tour of the facilities. Specifically, the medical records and design specifications. For quality assurance purposes." Lama Su's large eyes blinked slowly. "That information is proprietary, classified under Republic military protocols." "Then it's fortunate we're Republic military," Rex said, his voice hard. "Prime Minister, we're not asking. General Skywalker authorized this inspection. If you refuse, we'll have to file a report indicating non-cooperation with Republic oversight." It was a bluff, barely, but the Kaminoans were paranoid about maintaining their contract. After a long, uncomfortable pause, Lama Su nodded. "Very well, but you will be accompanied at all times." The records room was sterile and cold, like everything else on Camino. Rows upon rows of data cylinders contained the genetic blueprints of millions of clones. But what they needed was in a special subsection, marked with highest security protocols. Wukong's golden eyes scanned the room, seeing through walls and security systems until he found what they were looking for. "There," he whispered to Fives. "Third row, 7th cylinder. That's your inhibitor chip specifications." While Rex distracted their Kaminoan escort with technical questions, Fives and Echo retrieved the cylinder and uploaded its contents to an encrypted datapad. The file was massive: detailed schematics, genetic code, implementation protocols, and most damningly, a section labeled contingency orders. Order 66 was right there, in black and white. "In the event of Jedi rebellion, all clone troopers will execute their commanding officers and terminate all Jedi on sight." Fives felt his hands shaking as he read it. Every clone carried this order in their brain, dormant but ready, waiting for someone to speak the words. "Got it," Echo whispered. "Let's go before." Alarms blared. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. Their Kaminoan escort spoke into a communicator in their own language, then turned to the group with those unsettling eyes. You have accessed classified information without authorization. Security is en route. Of course they are, Wukong sighed. Nothing's ever simple, is it? He pulled his staff from behind his ear, expanding it to full size. Captain Rex, I suggest you and your brothers run. I'll handle our hosts. We're not leaving you. You need to get that evidence to someone who can use it. Wukong's voice carried absolute authority. I'm immortal, they can't kill me. You're not. Now Go. As Kaminoan security, a mixture of clone guards who didn't yet know what had been discovered and automated defense systems, converged on their position, Rex made the hardest decision of his life. Move out, double time. Fives, Echo, and Rex ran, while Wukong turned to face the approaching security forces with a smile that promised chaos. All right, clone makers, the Monkey King said, his golden eyes blazing. Let's discuss ethical labor practices, violently if necessary. What followed was less a battle and more a demonstration in why you don't corner a being who's fought his way out of heaven itself. Wukong didn't kill. He didn't need to, but he made it abundantly clear that no force on Kamino could stop him. Security droids were reduced to scrap. Clone guards were disarmed but not harmed. Kaminoans found themselves tied up with their own equipment. And when they sealed the facility's blast doors, Wukong simply transformed into something small enough to slip through the cracks, then reformed on the other side. By the time Rex, Fives, and Echo reached their ship, Wukong was already there, sitting on the boarding ramp and eating a fruit he'd stolen from someone's lunch. Took you long enough, he said cheerfully, ready to start a revolution. As their ship lifted off from Kamino, Fives clutched the datapad containing the truth about the clone army, evidence of the greatest conspiracy in galactic history, proof that the Republic's defenders were designed to be its executioners. What do we do now? Fives asked. Wukong looked at the ARC trooper, at Rex, at Echo, three men who just risked everything for the truth. Now we take this to your Jedi Council, and we see if they're brave enough to face what it means. He paused, his expression becoming unusually serious. But Fives, once we reveal this, there's no going back. The war will change. The Republic will change. And someone very powerful is going to be very angry that their secret is exposed. Good, Fives said firmly. Let them be angry. My brothers deserve to know the truth, deserve to choose their own fate. Then let's go give them that choice, Wukong said. As they jumped to hyperspace, heading back toward Coruscant, none of them noticed the encrypted transmission leaving Kamino. A message sent through hidden channels, reaching a shadowed office where Darth Sidious received the news with cold fury. The Monkey King had found the chips, had discovered Order 66. Unacceptable. It was time to remove this variable from the equation, permanently, if possible. And if not, well, there were other ways to ensure loyalty, other contingencies. The Sith had planned for 1,000 years. They wouldn't be undone by one troublesome immortal. But as Sidious began making arrangements, he felt something he hadn't felt in decades, the distinct possibility that he might be wrong about that. The Jedi Temple Council chamber had never been so tense. Every member of the council was present, a rarity during the Clone Wars, and the air itself seemed to crackle with suppressed emotion. In the center of the circle stood Captain Rex, Fives, Echo, and son Wukong, the latter looking remarkably unconcerned about being surrounded by some of the most powerful Force users in the galaxy. The datapad containing the inhibitor chip specifications sat on a projection pedestal, its contents displayed in holographic detail for all to see. The genetic code, the neural pathways, the contingency orders, and there, impossible to deny or rationalize away, was Order 66. Master Yoda's eyes were closed, his ancient face heavy with sorrow. Mace Windu's expression was carved from stone, but his hands gripped his chair's armrests with enough force to make the wood creak. Obi-Wan looked like a man watching his entire worldview crumble. Ki-Adi-Mundi was shaking his head in disbelief. "Impossible," the Sarian master whispered. "The clones have fought beside us for 3 years. They've saved our lives countless times. They would never." "They wouldn't have a choice," Fives interrupted, his voice strained but firm. "That's the point, Master. The chips override our free will. One command phrase from whoever controls them and we become puppets, executioners. We wouldn't even know why we're doing it. The chip would make us believe it was the right thing." "And you're certain of this?" Shaak Ti asked, her voice gentle but probing. As the Jedi overseer of Kamino, the implications of this revelation struck her particularly hard. "My eyes don't lie," Wukong said, speaking for the first time since entering the chamber. "I've examined hundreds of clones. Every single one has the chip. Every single one is a weapon waiting to be triggered." His golden gaze swept across the council. "You've been fighting with a gun pointed at your heads, and you never even knew it." "Who ordered this?" Anakin demanded, his voice barely controlled. He stood beside his men, his loyalty to them warring with his horror at what they represented. The Kaminoans wouldn't create something like this without authorization. Someone commissioned these chips. "The person who commissioned the clone army in the first place," Obi-Wan said slowly, pieces falling into place. "Master Sifo Dyas, or whoever used his name." "Sifo Dyas is dead," Mace Windu stated. "Has been for years, killed before the Battle of Geonosis." "Convenient timing," Wukong observed. "Dead men can't answer questions, can't explain why they ordered a slave army with kill switches in their heads." He leaned on his staff casually, but his eyes were sharp. "Your enemy is clever, very clever. They've been planning this for a long time." Yoda's eyes opened, and the weight of 900 years of wisdom pressed down on the chamber. "Warned us the Force has, clouded our vision became, the shroud of the dark side we sensed but not its true nature." His ears drooped. "Blind we were, arrogant." "What do we do?" Plo Koon asked. "We cannot simply decommission the entire clone army. Without them, the Republic would fall within months. The Separatists would." "The Separatists are part of this," Wukong interrupted. "Has that not occurred to you? Both sides being manipulated by the same source. The Jedi are fighting an enemy that wants you to win just enough to keep the war going, but lose enough to justify extreme measures." "That's absurd," Ki-Adi-Mundi protested. "Why would anyone orchestrate a galactic war just to gain absolute power?" Anakin said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "Think about it. The Republic is granting emergency powers to the Chancellor. Every month, we surrender more freedoms for security. The Senate has given Palpatine authority that no Chancellor has held in 1,000 years, and we justify it because of the war." Obi-Wan's face went pale. "The war is a tool to transform the Republic into something else." "Into an empire," Wukong said flatly. "I've seen it before in my own realm. Create a crisis, present yourself as the solution, consolidate power while everyone's too scared to notice. By the time they realize what's happened, it's too late." He pointed to the holographic display of Order 66. "This is how you complete the transformation. Eliminate the Jedi, the only force capable of resisting, and the Republic becomes whatever your hidden enemy wants it to be." The council sat in heavy silence, the implications sinking in like stones in deep water. "If what you say is true," Shaak Ti said carefully, "then we are in grave danger, not just from the Separatists but from our own army." "Not your army," Rex said firmly. "Our brothers, we're victims too. We didn't ask for these chips. We don't want to be weapons." His voice carried the anguish of a man confronting the reality that his entire existence had been designed for betrayal. "We're soldiers, yes, but we want to be soldiers who choose, who serve because we believe in something, not because we're programmed to." "Can the chips be removed?" Mace Windu asked, ever practical. "Yes," Wukong answered. "I could remove them, carefully. The surgery is delicate. The chip connects to crucial neural pathways, but it's possible. The problem is scale. There are millions of clones. Even working constantly, it would take years to remove every chip. Then we prioritize, Anakin said. Start with the clones stationed on Coruscant, the Temple Guard, the Senate security, the units most likely to be activated first. His tactical mind was already working through the logistics. We do it quietly, citing routine medical examinations. We don't reveal why we're doing it until we've secured enough loyal troops. And what about the rest? Echo asked. My brothers on distant battlefields, the clones who won't receive treatment in time. The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Yoda struck his Geimer stick against the floor, the sound sharp and final. Begin the removals we must, but carefully, quietly. If our enemy learns what we know, they may activate Order 66 early. His ancient eyes found Wukong. Your help we need. Remove the chips you can. Save the clones and the Jedi both. I'll help, Wukong agreed, on one condition. Mace Windu's eyes narrowed. You dare make conditions at a time like this? I dare make conditions at any time, Wukong shot back without heat. My condition is simple. When this is over, the clones go free, truly free. They get to choose their own paths. Some might stay soldiers, that's their right. But they should also have the right to be farmers, merchants, artists, whatever they want. No more treating them as property. Agreed. The council members exchanged glances. The proposal was radical, potentially destabilizing to the military structure they'd built. But they were also looking at evidence of a conspiracy that threatened to destroy everything they stood for. Agreed, Yoda said firmly before anyone could object. Freedom they deserve, freedom they shall have, if we survive. Then let's get to work, Wukong said. The medical bay of the Jedi Temple became a makeshift surgical center. Wukong, working with a team of medical droids and Jedi healers, began the painstaking process of removing inhibitor chips. His golden eyes could see the exact placement of the chip, the neural connections, the safest angle of extraction. His hands, capable of crushing battle droids, moved with the precision of a master surgeon. The first subject was Fives, who'd volunteered to go first. As he lay on the operating table, sedated but conscious enough to feel the pressure of the procedure, Wukong spoke to him quietly. This is going to feel strange, the Monkey King said, his hands glowing with a faint golden light as he used his celestial chi to steady his fingers. I'm going to reach into your brain and remove a piece of you that should never have been there. When it's done, you'll be free, truly free, ready. Do it, Fives whispered. The extraction took 20 minutes, an eternity of careful manipulation, gentle pressure, and precise cuts through organic tissue. When Wukong finally withdrew the chip, a small, innocuous-looking piece of bioengineered tissue, Fives gasped as if surfacing from deep water. It's gone, the ARC trooper whispered. I can feel it. There was always this pressure, this feeling like part of my head wasn't mine, and now it's just quiet. That's freedom, Wukong said gently, placing the chip in a containment cylinder. Remember what it feels like. You're going to help your brothers feel it too. Over the next 72 hours, Wukong performed over 300 chip extractions, working almost without rest. The clones stationed on Coruscant were prioritized, Senate guards, temple security, key commanders. Each extraction was cataloged, each chip preserved as evidence. But even as they worked, the galaxy was moving toward crisis. The Separatists, as if sensing some change in the Force, launched a massive assault on Coruscant itself. General Grievous led the attack personally, his fleet dropping out of hyperspace directly over the capital planet in a brazen display of aggression. The objective was clear: capture Chancellor Palpatine and break the Republic's will to continue the war. Or so it appeared. As sirens wailed across Coruscant and Republic forces scrambled to defend their capital, Anakin and Obi-Wan were called away from the temple. The two Jedi rushed toward the Senate building, where Palpatine was reportedly being held by Grievous himself. Wukong, his hands still stained with the sterile fluids of surgery, watched them go from the temple's main entrance. His golden eyes narrowed as he stared up at the sky where starfighters clashed and capital ships exchanged fire. "This attack is wrong," he said to Rex, who stood beside him. "Wrong how?" Rex asked. The captain had been one of the first to receive the chip extraction and now wore a small bacta patch on his temple where the incision had been made. The timing, the target, the theatrical nature of it. Wukong's enhanced senses could feel something in the air, a wrongness that had nothing to do with the battle overhead. This isn't an attempt to win the war. This is a stage play, and we're all dancing to someone's script. You think this is connected to the chips? I think everything is connected. The war, the chips, this attack, it all serves someone's purpose. Wukong made a decision. I'm going after them. Skywalker and Kenobi, they're walking into a trap. I'll come with you, Rex said immediately. No, you're needed here. If things go wrong, if Order 66 gets activated despite our efforts, the clones who have been freed will need a leader, someone to rally them. That's you, Captain. Wukong placed a hand on Rex's shoulder. But I promise you this, I'll bring your generals home. Before Rex could protest, Wukong had already vaulted into the air, his cloud somersault carrying him toward the Senate district faster than any speeder could travel. Above Coruscant's atmosphere, the battle was fierce. Republic Venator-class star destroyers traded fire with separatist frigates, while thousands of starfighters, V-19 Torrents, ARC-170s, headhunters for the Republic, Vulture droids, Tri-fighters, and Hyena bombers for the Separatists, wove between the capital ships in deadly ballet. Wukong bounded from ship to ship, using the vessels themselves as stepping stones. Clone pilots caught glimpses of a furry figure leaping through space and assumed their sensors were malfunctioning. Separatist droids tried to target him and found their targeting computers simply couldn't track something that moved without any apparent means of propulsion. He reached the invisible hand, Grievous's flagship, just as Anakin and Obi-Wan's fighters were docking in its hangar. The ship was already caught in the Republic fleet's tractor beams, its engines damaged, slowly being pulled down toward Coruscant's surface in what would be either a controlled landing or a spectacular crash. Wukong slipped through the hangar's atmospheric shield like a ghost, his transformation abilities allowing him to condense his form to nearly microscopic size before reforming in the shadows. His golden eyes immediately spotted Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting their way through battle droids, heading toward where Palpatine was supposedly being held. But Wukong's attention was drawn elsewhere. His mystical senses could feel something dark and oily nearby, the same rotting presence he detected across Coruscant, but concentrated here. Stronger, more purposeful. He followed that sensation through the ship's corridors, passing through walls when necessary, his celestial nature allowing him to ignore such mundane obstacles as physical barriers. The darkness led him to a private chamber, heavily shielded, where Count Dooku, the Sith Lord Tyrannus, was speaking to a hooded figure via hologram. The Jedi have discovered the chips, Dooku was saying, his cultured voice tight with concern. This Sun Wukong creature led them directly to the evidence. Order 66 may be compromised. The hooded figure, Wukong could sense the overwhelming darkness emanating from it even through the hologram, spoke with a voice like gravel scraped across stone. The Monkey King has become a problem, more significant than anticipated. Shall I eliminate him? He's aboard this vessel, I could. No, the dark figure interrupted. You are not his match, Lord Tyrannus. Few beings are, but he has a weakness. The hologram seemed to smile, though the hood obscured most of its face. He cares about the clones, about the Jedi, about justice. We will use that caring against him. How, my master? But everything proceeds as I have foreseen. Skywalker will arrive. You will duel him, and when the time is right, you will fall as planned. The boy's descent into darkness must begin. As for the Monkey King, the figure's hand gestured dismissively. He cannot be everywhere at once. While he watches one trap spring, we will activate others. And if he interferes, then we accelerate the timeline. Order 66 can be activated early if necessary. Better to lose some Jedi than to risk losing all control. The hologram flickered. Trust in the dark side, my apprentice. Trust in the plan we have crafted over decades. One troublesome immortal will not undo 1,000 years of Sith preparation. The hologram cut off, and Dooku stood alone in the chamber, his expression troubled. Wukong, hidden in the shadows, processed what he'd heard. So this was the enemy, this dark presence pulling all the strings. A Sith Lord. He'd heard the Jedi mention them, working through puppets like Dooku. And now that enemy knew about the chip removals, knew about Wukong's interference, and was planning to activate Order 66 early. Wukong could kill Dooku right now, end one of the conspiracy's key players, but that would tip their hand, reveal that he knew about their plans. Better to let events play out, watch for the real enemy to reveal themselves. Besides, Anakin was about to arrive, and Wukong wanted to see what kind of man the young Jedi really was under pressure. The duel between Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Count Dooku played out exactly as Wukong suspected it would. A carefully choreographed performance designed to push Anakin toward darkness. Dooku fought well, but not at his full capability. He created situations where Anakin's anger would be stoked. And when the moment came, when Anakin had Dooku defeated and disarmed, Palpatine, freed from his clearly staged captivity, whispered poison in the young Jedi's ear. Kill him now. Wukong watched from the shadows as Anakin hesitated, the good and dark warring within him. Saw the moment when rage overcame restraint, when Anakin's lightsabers crossed and Dooku's head fell. The shock on Anakin's face was genuine, the horror at what he'd done, the realization that he'd executed a helpless prisoner. And Palpatine's expression, hidden from Anakin but visible to Wukong's all-seeing eyes, was pure satisfaction. Good, Anakin, good, the Chancellor said, his voice oozing false sympathy. He was too dangerous to be kept alive. Wukong had seen enough. He materialized from the shadows, his sudden appearance making Obi-Wan ignite his lightsaber reflexively, and Anakin stumbled backward in surprise. Wukong, Anakin said, how did you? Followed you. Good thing too. Wukong's golden eyes fixed on Palpatine with an intensity that made even the Sith Lord's mask of kindly concern falter slightly. You must be the Chancellor, the one everyone's so desperate to rescue. And you must be the legendary son Wukong, Palpatine said, recovering quickly. His voice was warm, grandfatherly. I've heard so much about you, the being who saved the medical station, who fights alongside our brave clones. The Republic is grateful for your service. I don't serve the Republic, Wukong said flatly. I help individuals I respect. There's a difference. He stepped closer, his staff appearing in his hand. Tell me, Chancellor, do you know anything about inhibitor chips? The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Palpatine's eyes, watery and benign, met Wukong's golden gaze without flinching. I'm afraid I don't understand the question. The biological control devices implanted in every clone trooper's brain, the ones with contingency orders that would turn the entire army into executioners with a single command phrase. Wukong tilted his head, his enhanced senses reading every microexpression, every slight change in Palpatine's breathing, every minute shift in his posture. Surely the Supreme Chancellor would know about such a significant feature of the military he commands. I was not aware of the full specifications of the cloning process, Palpatine said carefully. The Jedi Council and the Kaminoans handled those details. Are you suggesting something improper? He was good, Wukong had to admit. The lie was smooth, the confusion genuine seeming, the concern perfectly calibrated. If Wukong couldn't see the dark rot surrounding this man like a miasma, couldn't sense the layers upon layers of deception, he might have believed it. But his golden eyes saw truth. And the truth was that this kindly old man was the source of all the corruption he'd sensed since arriving in this galaxy. "I'm not suggesting anything," Wukong said, "just making conversation." He turned to Anakin and Obi-Wan. "We should leave. This ship is breaking up." Indeed, the invisible hand was shaking violently, its damaged systems failing as it entered Coruscant's atmosphere at a terrible angle. They needed to reach the hangar, reach their ships, escape before the vessel tore itself apart. As they ran through the corridors, Anakin half carrying the supposedly weak Chancellor, Wukong hung back slightly, letting the Jedi take point. His mind was racing, calculating. He could kill Palpatine right now. One strike with his staff, and the Sith Lord's head would be paste. The conspiracy would be decapitated. Order 66 would die with its architect. But something held him back, a nagging doubt. Would killing Palpatine actually solve anything? Or would it just create a power vacuum that another Sith would fill? And more importantly, without proof of Palpatine's involvement, without evidence the Republic could accept, Wukong would just be an outsider who'd murdered their elected leader. The Jedi would turn on him. The clones who still had chips would be activated. The galaxy would descend into chaos. No, this required finesse, something Wukong wasn't naturally good at, but had learned during his journey with Tripitaka. Sometimes the direct approach wasn't the right approach. They reached the hangar, where their ships waited. As Anakin and Obi-Wan prepared for launch, Palpatine approached Wukong one final time. "Thank you for your assistance," the Chancellor said quietly. "I understand you've been helping with a medical issue among the clones." So he knew, of course he knew. "Just routine checkups," Wukong said casually. "Making sure your soldiers are healthy. Wouldn't want anything to compromise their effectiveness." Indeed, Palpatine smiled, and for just a moment, so brief that anyone without Wukong's perception would have missed it, his eyes flashed yellow, the eyes of a Sith. "Do continue your work. I'm sure it's enlightening for all involved." It was a threat and an acknowledgement all at once. "I know what you're doing, I'm watching you, and I'm not afraid." Wukong smiled back, showing teeth. "Oh, I intend to. In fact, I'm planning to work triple shifts. Wouldn't want to miss a single soldier. I'm not afraid of you either, and I'm going to free every clone before you can use them." The unspoken battle of wills lasted only seconds, but both beings understood perfectly what the other was saying. Then the moment passed. Palpatine returned to being the kindly Chancellor. Wukong returned to being the foreign warrior, and the invisible hand screamed toward Coruscant's surface, breaking up as it fell. The landing was spectacular. Anakin's piloting, combined with Obi-Wan's desperate force-pushing of critical structural supports, managed to bring the massive ship down in a controlled crash that obliterated only a small section of the industrial district, rather than half the Senate building. As they emerged from the wreckage, heroes of the Republic, crowds cheering and news cameras rolling, Wukong caught sight of something that made his blood run cold. Among the Senate guards congratulating Palpatine, there were clones, dozens of them, clones whose temples showed no back-to-patches, clones who still had their chips. And Palpatine was smiling at them with grandfatherly warmth, his hand resting on one clone commander's shoulder in what looked like a gesture of thanks, but could just as easily be a reminder of possession. He's preparing to activate them, Wukong realized. Soon. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, but soon. They'd removed 300 chips. There were 3 million clones in service across the galaxy. They were out of time. As the celebrations continued, as the politicians praised the Jedi for their heroism, as the news networks declared the kidnapping attempt a disaster for the Separatists, Wukong slipped away from the crowds. He found a quiet rooftop overlooking the Senate building and pulled out a communicator that Rex had given him. "Captain," he said when Rex answered, "gather everyone who's had their chip removed. Every last one. I don't care if they're on medical leave or assigned to guard duty. Get them all together." "What's happening?" Rex's voice was tense. He knew that tone. "War," Wukong said simply. "The real war, not the one with droids and frigates. The war for the soul of this republic, and it's about to begin." He paused, watching Palpatine through a window far below, watching the Sith Lord move among his pawns. "The enemy just showed his hand. He knows we know, which means he's going to act." "When?" "Soon, maybe hours, maybe days, but soon." Wukong's grip tightened on his staff. "And when he does, 300 free clones are going to have to stand against 3 million who are still enslaved. The Jedi are going to be hunted, and the Republic is going to die." "Then we fight," Rex said firmly. "Every freed brother will fight. We won't let our enslaved siblings kill the Jedi. We won't let this Chancellor, or whoever he really is, win." "Good man," Wukong smiled despite the situation. "Because I'm about to do something very stupid and very necessary. I'm going to confront the Sith Lord directly, draw his attention, make him show his true face to the galaxy. And while he's focused on me, you're going to evacuate every Jedi you can from the temple. Get them somewhere safe, somewhere hidden. Preserve what you can of their order. You're going to fight him alone." "I've fought worse," Wukong said, thinking of battles against heaven itself. "Besides, I'm immortal. The worst he can do is annoy me. But Rex, if I fail, if he activates Order 66 before we're ready, you need to promise me something." "Anything." "Save as many of your brothers as you can. The ones with chips, they won't be themselves when the order comes. They'll be weapons. But they're still your brothers underneath. If there's any way to free them after, any way to break the programming, do it. Don't let them live the rest of their lives knowing they killed people they cared about." "I promise," Rex said quietly. "May the Force be with you, Wukong." "The Force has nothing to do with where I'm going," Wukong replied. "But I appreciate the sentiment." He closed the communicator and stood, his staff extending to full length, his golden eyes fixed on the Senate building where the Dark Lord of the Sith was even now consolidating his power, preparing to spring his trap. Sun Wukong had defied the Jade Emperor, had fought the armies of heaven, had earned his title as the great sage equal to heaven through sheer audacity and indomitable will. A Sith Lord, even one who'd planned for 1,000 years, was about to learn why you don't corner the Monkey King. The Battle of Coruscant was over. But the real war was just beginning. The Jedi Temple archives were nearly empty at this hour. Most Jedi were either in meditation or deployed across the galaxy. Jocasta Nu, the chief librarian, worked alone among the ancient holocrons and data cylinders that contained millennia of accumulated wisdom. She was cataloging recent battle reports when a clone trooper entered, his movements stiff and formal. "Master Nu," the clone said, his voice oddly flat. "I have new intelligence files for archival storage." "Of course, Commander. Just place them on the—" She never finished the sentence. The clone's blaster came up with mechanical precision, his finger already squeezing the trigger. But before the bolt could fire, a golden-furred hand caught the blaster and crushed it like paper. Sun Wukong materialized between them, having moved faster than either could perceive. His other hand pressed against the clone's temple, and his golden eyes blazed with power as he looked directly into the trooper's mind. What he saw made him snarl. The chip was active, transmitting, already executing its terrible purpose. "Master Nu, run," Wukong said quietly, his voice deadly calm. "Find Masters Yoda and Windu. Tell them it's happening. Order 66 has been activated." "What but? Now?" The librarian fled, her robes billowing as she raced toward the council chambers. Wukong turned his attention back to the clone, whose face was twisted with internal struggle. Behind the chip's programming, the real person was screaming, fighting against the commands being forced into his mind. "I'm sorry, brother," Wukong whispered, and struck a pressure point on the clone's neck. The trooper crumpled, unconscious but alive. Wukong could feel the chip's signal still pulsing in the clone's brain, trying to wake him, force him to continue his mission. All across Coruscant, all across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out. Clone troopers who hours before had fought beside Jedi, who had called them General with respect and even affection, were now turning their weapons on their commanders with cold efficiency. On Cato Neimoidia, Commander Cody aimed his blaster at Obi-Wan Kenobi's back as the Jedi Master dealt with a lizard creature mount. One shot. The Jedi fell from a cliff, disappearing into the sinkhole below. On Mygeeto, Ki-Adi-Mundi turned at the sound of weapons powering up, just in time to see his own troops, men he'd led for 3 years, open fire. The Sarian Master deflected the first volts with his lightsaber, but there were too many. He fell, his last thought one of profound betrayal. On Felucia, Isla Secura laughed at something Commander Bly said, her back turned in trust. The clones opened fire as one. The Twi'lek Jedi didn't even have time to draw her lightsaber. On Kashyyyk, Master Yoda meditated among the Wookiees when he felt it, a massive disturbance in the Force. Not the death of one Jedi, but dozens, hundreds. The ancient Jedi Master's eyes snapped open just as 2 clone troopers aimed their weapons at him. He moved before they could fire, his lightsaber cutting through their weapons. The Force pushed them back, non-lethally, and Yoda fled into the forest with Wookiee allies who understood that something terrible had just occurred. On Utapau, in the sinkhole where Obi-Wan had fallen, the Jedi Master clung to a strut of metal, very much alive, watching his mount swim away in terror. Above him, Commander Cody stood at the edge, waiting to confirm the kill. Obi-Wan's mind raced. Why had Cody shot him? What had happened? But there was no time for answers, only survival. In the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, alarms blared. Masters Yoda and Mace Windu had received Jocasta news warning mere moments before clone troopers began breaching the lower levels. 300 freed clones, led by Captain Rex, moved to intercept their still enslaved brothers, creating a desperate defensive line. "Hold fire," Rex shouted to his men as a battalion of chip-controlled clones advanced up the temple steps. "These are our brothers. We don't kill our brothers." "They're not going to return the favor, Captain," Five said grimly, his blaster raised but pointed at the ceiling. The ARC trooper could see the blank expressions on the approaching clones' faces, the emptiness that came from the chip's override. "Then we stun them, we disable them, we do not kill them," Rex's voice cracked with emotion. "That's an order." The freed clones opened fire with stun bolts, trying desperately to incapacitate their enslaved brothers without killing them. It was a losing battle. Stun settings required more accuracy, more shots, and gave their opponents every advantage. But Rex's men held the line through sheer determination, and the knowledge that every brother they stunned was a brother who might still be saved. In the council chamber, Mace Windu made rapid decisions. Master Yoda is off-world, likely targeted. Kenobi, Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, all deployed with clone battalions. His jaw clenched. "They're being hunted as we speak." "The younglings," Shaak Ti said urgently. "We must evacuate the younglings." "Agreed. Take them through the lower passages. Get them off Coruscant if you can." Windu activated his lightsaber, its purple blade humming to life. "I'm going to the Senate. If this is a coup, Palpatine is either in danger or—" "He's the one who gave the order," Anakin said, appearing in the doorway. His face was ashen, his eyes haunted. "I felt it. Through the Force. When the order was given, there was a spike of satisfaction from the Chancellor's office. Dark side energy." The council members stared at him. "Chancellor Palpatine is the Sith Lord," Anakin continued, his voice hollow. "He's been playing us from the beginning. The war, the emergency powers, the chips, all of it was him. Wukong was right." "Where is son Wukong?" Windu demanded. As if in answer, a massive explosion rocked the Senate building across the city. Through the temple windows, they could see a pillar of flame rising from the Chancellor's office tower. In that tower moments earlier, Sun Wukong had walked through the front door. He hadn't bothered with stealth or subtlety. He'd simply strode through the Senate building in his full glory, golden-furred, staff in hand, eyes blazing with celestial power, and no one had dared stop him. The red guards that protected Palpatine's office tried. Their force pikes struck at Wukong with energy that could kill a rancor. He caught the first pike with one hand and used it to vault over the guard, landing behind him and delivering a pressure point strike that left the guard unconscious but alive. The second guard had time to activate an alarm before Wukong's staff, extended to 10 feet, swept his legs, and deposited him gently against a wall. "Sorry, boys," Wukong said cheerfully, "but I have an appointment with your boss, and I'm already late." The doors to Palpatine's office were massive, reinforced, designed to withstand assault. Wukong punched through them like they were paper screens. Inside, in the dimly lit chamber decorated with expensive art and ancient Sith artifacts hidden in plain sight, Chancellor Palpatine sat at his desk. He didn't look up from the datapad he was reviewing. "Son Wukong," Palpatine said mildly, "I thought you might visit. Would you like some tea? I have several varieties from across the galaxy." "Cut the act, Sith," Wukong said, his staff growing to full combat size. "I can see you, really see you. The disguise doesn't work on my eyes." Palpatine finally looked up, and when he did, the mask fell away. The kindly grandfather expression melted like wax, revealing something ancient, predatory, and utterly without mercy. His eyes blazed yellow with Sith corruption. "How refreshing," Darth Sidious said in a voice like grinding metal wrapped in silk, "to speak without pretense. Tell me, Monkey King, how did you know?" "I could smell the rot the moment I arrived on this planet," Wukong replied. "You're like a festering wound in the Force. And when I saw you on that ship, felt the darkness radiating from you, it was obvious. Every move you made, every word you spoke, calculated, manipulative. You're not a politician. You're a predator wearing a politician's skin." Perceptive, Sidious stood, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, the shadows seemed to deepen, to take on substance. "I've spent decades crafting this persona, deceiving the Jedi Council, manipulating the Senate, and you saw through it in days. Impressive." "So what now?" Wukong asked. "You've activated your kill order. The Jedi are being hunted. Your plan is in motion. Why am I still alive? You could have had your clones kill me a dozen times." "Because you fascinate me," Sidious admitted. "A being from beyond this galaxy, untouched by the Force, immune to my visions and manipulations." He circled his desk slowly like a professor lecturing a student. "I've spent 1,000 years planning the Sith's revenge, every variable accounted for, every possibility calculated, and then you arrived, an impossible variable, a piece that doesn't belong on the board. And that scares you." "It intrigues me." Sidious's smile was all teeth. "You're powerful, son Wukong, perhaps powerful enough to challenge me, but you're also alone. One being against an entire galaxy that I control. Your Jedi friends are being killed as we speak. The clones you tried to save are executing them with perfect efficiency. And soon, the Republic will become my empire with no one left to oppose me." "Except me." "Except you," Sidious agreed. "Which brings us to why you're here. You could have fled, could have taken your freed clones and disappeared into the Outer Rim, but instead you came to confront me. Why?" Wukong twirled his staff, settling into a combat stance that had defeated gods. "Because I'm the Monkey King, the great sage equal to heaven, and I don't run from tyrants, I beat them until they learn humility." How delightfully naive. Sidious's hands came from behind his back, and blue lightning crackled between his fingers. "I am the culmination of 1,000 years of Sith knowledge. I have mastered the dark side of the Force to a degree you cannot comprehend. I have foreseen this moment, planned for it, prepared for it." "And yet," Wukong grinned, "you're still talking instead of fighting, which means you're either arrogant, scared, or stalling. I'm betting on all three." The lightning struck like a thunderbolt from hell itself. Force lightning, Sidious's signature technique, channeled the pure hatred of the dark side into electrical energy that didn't just burn flesh but corroded the spirit itself. It had killed Jedi masters, destroyed armies, broken the minds of those strong enough to survive it. Wukong caught it on his staff. The Rui Jingu Bang, forged in celestial fires and baptized in the waters of the Eastern Ocean, conducted the lightning harmlessly into the floor. Wukong stood unmoved, his grin widening. Nice try. Lightning techniques are common where I'm from. I fought the Thunder God once. He had much better control than you. Sidious's expression flickered with genuine surprise, then rage. He unleashed a torrent of lightning, pouring decades of accumulated dark side power into the attack. The office windows shattered, the walls cracked, the very air screamed with unleashed hatred. Wukong weathered it all, his staff spinning to deflect the worst of it, his immortal body shrugging off what got through. When Sidious finally stopped, breathing heavily, Wukong's fur was slightly singed, but he was otherwise unharmed. "My turn," Wukong said and moved. He crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat, his staff swinging in an arc that would have pulverized Durasteel. Sidious threw up a force barrier at the last instant. The impact sent shockwaves through the building, cracking the floor and sending furniture flying. They fought like gods in a world of mortals. Sidious wielded the Force with mastery born of centuries of study, throwing Wukong through walls with telekinetic force, creating crushing pressure that would have turned a normal being into paste, conjuring illusions that might have fooled anyone else. But Wukong had fought the armies of heaven, had battled Erlang Shen, the three-eyed god of war, had exchanged blows with Buddha himself. The Force was powerful, yes, but it was just another form of power, and power was something Wukong understood intimately. His staff found its mark again and again, each strike forcing Sidious to expend more energy defending. His golden eyes saw through every illusion, every feint. His immortal body healed from injuries almost as fast as they were inflicted. "You can't kill me," Wukong said, pressing his advantage. "I've achieved 7 forms of immortality. I've eaten the peaches of immortality, consumed the pills of longevity, had my name erased from the book of life and death. Even Buddha could only contain me, not destroy me. What makes you think you can succeed where gods failed?" Sidious, for the first time in decades, felt something he'd almost forgotten: doubt. This being was beyond his capacity to defeat through direct combat, but the Sith had not survived 1,000 years through direct combat alone. "Perhaps I cannot kill you," Sidious hissed, his yellow eyes blazing, "but I can make you wish for death." The Sith Lord reached out through the Force, not at Wukong, but at the city around them. Across Coruscant, in the temple, he seized control of every clone trooper still under chip control and issued a single command: "Kill everyone. Jedi, civilians, each other if necessary. Paint the temple steps in blood." Wukong felt it not through the Force, but through the change in the air, the spike of malevolent intent. He lunged at Sidious, but the Sith Lord was already moving, his form blurring as he fled through a hidden passage. "Choose, Monkey King." Sidious's voice echoed through the chamber. "Chase me and maybe end this, or save the Jedi from my final command. You cannot do both, and every second you hesitate, more people die." Wukong stood frozen for a heartbeat, his staff raised, his every instinct screaming to pursue and end the Sith Lord. But in his mind's eye, he could see the temple. Rex and his freed brothers fighting desperately against overwhelming odds, younglings huddled in fear, Jedi masters making their last stands. He'd fought to save others once before, during his journey to the West, had chosen protection over vengeance time and again, had learned that true strength wasn't just about defeating enemies, it was about saving those who couldn't save themselves. "Damn it," Wukong snarled and turned away from the passage. His cloud somersault carried him out of the shattered office, across the cityscape, toward the temple where the real battle was being fought. Behind him, in the shadows of the Senate building, Darth Sidious smiled. The Monkey King was predictable after all. Powerful, yes. Dangerous, certainly, but ultimately limited by his own compassion. It was a weakness Sidious had no intention of ever developing. Wukong landed on the temple steps like a meteor, his arrival sending shockwaves that knocked over friend and foe alike. The scene before him was carnage, freed clones fighting their enslaved brothers, both sides taking casualties. Jedi Masters holding defensive positions, their lightsabers deflecting a storm of blaster fire, and advancing up the steps, a full battalion of clone troopers moving with inhuman coordination, their faces blank, their chips overriding every shred of humanity. Enough! Wukong's voice, amplified by his celestial nature, rang out like a thunderclap. Every clone trooper, freed and enslaved alike, stumbled, their audio sensors overloading from the sheer volume. Wukong planted his staff and began to spin it, faster and faster, until it became a blur of motion. Then he struck the ground with it, and the impact created a shockwave that rippled outward in a perfect circle, knocking every clone trooper off their feet without seriously injuring them. "Rex," Wukong called, "get the Jedi out now." "What about our brothers?" Rex shouted back, gesturing to the unconscious enslaved clones. "I'll handle them, Geo." As the freed clones began evacuating Jedi and younglings through the temple's hidden passages, Wukong plucked a handful of fur from his arms, at least 100 strands. He blew on them, and they transformed into duplicates that scattered across the battlefield. The Wukong clones worked with surgical precision. Each one moved to an unconscious clone trooper, pressed golden fingers against their temples, and used celestial chi to put them into deep hibernation, a state beyond the chip's ability to wake them from. It wasn't a cure, but it was containment. These clones wouldn't kill anyone while they slept, and maybe, just maybe, there would be time later to remove their chips. But even as Wukong worked, he could feel it across the Force-touched galaxy, Jedi dying. Dozens, scores, hundreds. Each death a ripple in the cosmic energy that even he, untouched by the Force, could perceive as a wrongness in the universe. He couldn't save them all, couldn't be everywhere at once. Some Jedi would escape, Yoda, Kenobi, perhaps a handful of others. But the Order as it had existed for millennia was ending tonight, and no amount of power could change that. Failure tasted like ashes in his mouth. When the last enslaved clone at the temple had been put into hibernation, Wukong dismissed his duplicates and stood alone on the blood-stained steps. Around him, the city burned. Emergency sirens wailed. And somewhere out there, Darth Sidious was consolidating his power, preparing his next move. Anakin found him there, the young Jedi's face streaked with tears. Master Windu went to confront Palpatine. Alone, I wanted to help, but his voice broke. I felt him die. Windu, one of the greatest Jedi Masters in history, and Palpatine killed him. Not killed, Wukong said quietly, his golden eyes distant. Murdered, there's a difference. Killing is combat, murder is execution. He turned to Anakin. The Sith Lord offered you power, didn't he? During the war, maybe even tonight. Promised he could teach you to save the people you love. Anakin's silence was answer enough. That's how predators work, Wukong continued. They find your weakness, your fear, your love, your desperation, and they exploit it. They make you think the only way to protect what you care about is to become what you hate. He placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder. But power gained through compromise of principle is just another form of slavery. I learned that the hard way. What do we do now? Anakin asked. The Order is broken, the Republic is falling, Palpatine controls everything. Now, Wukong looked up at the smoke-filled sky. Now we save who we can, protect those who remain, and we prepare for the long fight. He smiled grimly. Palpatine thinks he's won. But empires built on lies and murder always fall eventually. It just takes time, patience, and someone stubborn enough to keep fighting. Someone like you. Someone like us, Wukong corrected. I'm powerful, Skywalker, but I can't fix this galaxy alone. I'll need allies, friends, people willing to stand up and say no more. People like you, Rex, the freed clones, the surviving Jedi. His grip tightened on Anakin's shoulder. Are you with me? Anakin looked at the temple, his home, now a battlefield. Thought of his fellow Jedi being hunted across the galaxy. Remembered Padme, pregnant with his child, somewhere in the Senate building. And he thought of what might happen if he did nothing. I'm with you, he said firmly. Whatever it takes. Good. Wukong extended his staff, shrinking it to needle size. Because we're about to become the most wanted beings in the galaxy. Palpatine won't tolerate opposition, and he has 3 million clone troopers to hunt us with. 3 million minus the 300 we freed. Plus however many more we can free, Wukong added. That'll be our first priority, remove as many chips as possible, create an army of truly free soldiers. He grinned, that mischievous expression that promised chaos. And then we're going to do what I do best. What's that? Cause problems for people who think they're in charge. Across the city, in the Senate chamber, Darth Sidious addressed a joint session of senators and declared that the Jedi had betrayed the Republic, that they'd attempted a coup, that emergency measures were necessary to ensure security. The Senate, cowed by fear and years of manipulation, gave him everything he asked for. The Republic died to thunderous applause, just as Padme Amidala whispered in horror. But in the shadows of that same Senate building, Sun Wukong watched through a window. His golden eyes recording every face that cheered, every senator that bowed. This was an enemy that couldn't be defeated with strength alone. This required something more subtle, more strategic. It required rebellion, revolution, the slow, grinding work of tearing down a tyranny piece by piece. Wukong had 500 years of practice at being patient, at waiting for the right moment, at surviving impossible odds. Sidious had created an empire. The Monkey King was about to teach him why empires feared legends. The galaxy changed in a single night. Order 66 decimated the Jedi Order, reducing 10,000 Jedi to mere handfuls of survivors scattered across the stars. The Republic transformed into the Galactic Empire with Palpatine, now openly Emperor, wielding absolute power. Clone troopers, their will subverted by biochips, became the instruments of their friends' destruction. But in the darkness, something unexpected emerged: resistance. 300 freed clones became the core of what would be called the Free Legion, soldiers who remembered what it meant to choose. Led by Captain Rex, they waged a quiet war to liberate their enslaved brothers, one surgical chip extraction at a time. It was slow, dangerous work, but every freed clone was a victory stolen from the Empire's grasp. The surviving Jedi, Yoda, Obi-Wan, a handful of others, scattered into hiding, but they weren't alone. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King who'd crashed into their galaxy like a comet, refused to let them disappear into despair. He connected them, created networks, reminded them that survival was its own form of resistance. The Empire hunted him relentlessly, but you cannot catch what you cannot predict, and Wukong had spent centuries mastering the art of being impossible to pin down. Anakin Skywalker stood at a crossroads. In another timeline, he might have fallen, might have become Darth Vader and brought darkness to the galaxy. But with Wukong's intervention, with proof of Palpatine's manipulation, with the chips exposed, with a friend who understood the seduction of dark power from personal experience, he made a different choice. He chose to protect rather than control, to trust rather than dominate. He became a guardian of the resistance, using his power to shield those who couldn't shield themselves. Darth Sidious, for his part, had achieved his empire, but at a cost he hadn't anticipated. The plan had been perfect, until an immortal monkey crashed through it. Now every vision was clouded, every prediction uncertain. The Monkey King represented chaos incarnate, a variable that couldn't be calculated or controlled. For the first time in 1,000 years of Sith planning, the future was unwritten. The Empire would hunt them, would send inquisitors, bounty hunters, entire fleets to destroy the growing rebellion. But they would find, as heaven itself had learned centuries ago, that some spirits cannot be broken. Some legends refuse to die, and some battles are won not through overwhelming force, but through stubborn persistence and the unshakable belief that tyranny, no matter how powerful, is always temporary. Sun Wukong had defied the Jade Emperor and survived, had troubled heaven and emerged stronger, had been trapped under a mountain for 5 centuries and learned patience. Now, in this strange galaxy far from his home, he would teach an empire the same lesson he taught the celestial bureaucracy. That no cage can hold freedom forever. That authority without justice is just tyranny with a prettier name. And that somewhere, always, there would be someone willing to say no and mean it. The Clone Wars had ended. The Age of Empire had begun. But in cantinas across the Outer Rim, in whispered conversations in the Senate's shadows, in stories told by freed clones to their liberated brothers, a new legend was already spreading. The legend of the Monkey King who came from beyond the stars and refused to bow, who fought beside soldiers and Jedi alike, who looked at an emperor and saw just another bully who needed a lesson in humility. And in the deeper shadows, in hidden temples and forgotten outposts, a message passed from hand to hand. The Empire thinks it has won, but empires are built by people, and people can be freed. Be patient, be strong, be ready. The great sage equal to heaven stands with us. And the battle for the galaxy's soul has only just begun. Palpatine had transformed a republic into an empire in a single night. But as he would learn, as all tyrants eventually learn, building a prison is easy. Keeping free spirits imprisoned, that's the impossible part. And Sun Wukong had built a career out of doing the impossible. The Monkey King grins from the shadows of a fallen republic, his staff ready, his spirit unbroken. The Empire has risen, but legends don't die, they adapt, they persist, and they remind tyrants why fear is a poor foundation for power. What other heroes might crash into this galaxy far, far away? The choice is yours. Until then, may your rebellions be brave and your spirits unbreakable.